Chapter 300, 7 Divine Golden Bodies, Primordial Ultimate Body. The mysterious divine immortal of wondrous Dharma wandered in this mortal world region, never stepping onto the continent where Guwen was located. A day and a night later, he left. Starting from the second day, rumors about the great cold demon sect being annihilated single-handedly by sword Venerable Fudao spread like a hurricane across the seas, shocking the countless beings that were fleeing. Their first reaction was disbelief, as the news sounded too preposterous. The world was in an uproar, and within the supreme sect, it was a time of celebration, with dazzling lights and decoration everywhere. Everyone was singing praises of Sword Venerable Fudao's magnificent feats and mighty power. This time, Sword Venerable Fudao's rescue efforts had a wider reach than ever before. How could they not be proud? They were unclear if there truly were immortals who cared for the common folk in this world, but at least in their hearts, Sword Venerable Fudao was an immortal who brought salvation to all living beings. The day after the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma left, Guwen quietly departed from the continent. He headed south, moving away from the mortal world region where the supreme sect was located. Eventually, he arrived at a desolate sea, where the number of beings was extremely sparse. Whether deep within the sea or above its surface, numerous lost souls and wild ghosts floated about. The sky above this place was covered with dense, oppressive clouds, but the spiritual energy here was quite abundant. After surveying the area with his divine sense, Guwen discovered an island deep within the ocean guarded by powerful restrictions. If he were to break through forcefully, he would undoubtedly alert the entity within. He speculated that a carefree primordial immortal might be hiding inside because, although the restrictions were strong, he felt it wouldn't be difficult to break through if he wanted. No wonder the spiritual energy was so abundant here, yet there were so few beings. It turns out a malevolent deity was hidden within. Guwen landed on an uninhabited isolated island and immediately activated the lifespan barrier. 790 million years of lifespan. The more he looked at it, the more invigorating it felt. He had never been so affluent before. Guwen sat cross-legged in front of a withered tree, looking at his attribute panel, chuckling to himself. First, he would enjoy the moment for a while longer. After a good while, Guwen then reined in his emotions and decided to give lifespan samsara a try. He would test the waters with 10 million years. If this function turned out to be ineffective, he would dismiss it forever, just like the lifespan deduction he had initiated before. You have spent 10 million years of lifespan to trigger one reincarnation evolution, beginning connection to Tao rules, searching for reincarnation heaven and earth. You have the following heaven and earth options, choose any one. 1. Great Heavenly Spirit Land. 2. Dark Great Heaven and Earth. 3. The Great Multiverse. There's even a Great Heavenly Spirit Land? Guwen thought if the reincarnation evolution reflected reality, could it be that it's not just memory fusion, but it could also affect reality itself? He wasn't sure, so after some thought, he decided not to choose the Great Heavenly Spirit Land to avoid any potential issues. He was drawn to the Dark Great Heaven and Earth. The name sounded well suited for his life-stealing ability. Since it was reincarnation evolution, perhaps he would still possess his current golden finger. That's the one. Dark Great Heaven and Earth. You choose to reincarnate into the Dark Great Heaven and Earth. Considering that the Tao rules of this world cannot conceal your talent, you will retain the life-stealing ability, but cannot unlock stage-specific functions. Reincarnation evolution begins. In the first year, you were born in a village in the East Profound Domain, and your parents named you Chu Lu. At the age of 7, you accidentally pulled up a spirit grass in the mountains, stealing 8 years of lifespan, marking a turning point in your destiny. At the age of 8, you took an immortal cultivator as a master and traveled the world with him. At 15, you encountered a cultivator robbery. To protect you, your master died. You harbored a grudge, hid in the mountains, and began to accumulate lifespan. By 18, you evolved your cultivation level to the nascent soul realm through lifespan evolution, and you began your revenge. At 19, you infiltrated the residence of your enemies, killing everyone until only one person remained, a girl. Seeing her fearful demeanor, you felt some reluctance and struggled internally. Do you choose to execute her? The prompt stopped here. Guwen paused for a moment, choosing not to execute her, joking aside, with his life-stealing ability, he certainly wouldn't be hunted by this girl. You spared the girl, Qingjialan, and resumed your path of immortal cultivation. Seeing this prompt, Guwen smiled. This girl, like his junior sister, also had Lan in her name. The previous prompts had no names. It seemed the deceased don't get named unless they survive. Hold on, his parents and master were initially alive as well, but they were not named. He suddenly had a bad feeling. Could it be that this Qingjialan would live a long time? At 20, you joined the Daoist sect, and with your exceptional cultivation level and talent, you became a direct disciple, making a name for yourself within the sect. At 21, you utilized the lifespan deduction cultivation technique to master the 7 hearts technique. At 22, jealous of you, the sect leader's son ambushed you while you were on a mission, surrounding you with his people. You executed all his followers, leaving only the sect leader's son alive. He knelt before you, begging for mercy, and you hesitated. Do you choose to execute him? Guwen didn't hesitate, and the prompt continued to appear. Killing men and sparing women? Seems like there's something wrong with the standard, huh? Guwen criticized himself internally. Subsequently, the him in the reincarnation returned to the Daoist sect, faced continuous strife and enmity, and he always chose to kill, since it was others who provoked him. Killing led to the unveiling of secrets, and he was pursued by the Daoist sect and even placed on a wanted list. After that, almost every year he was embroiled in battles, sometimes several times within a year. Once, Guwen chose to save a wounded cultivator he encountered by chance, only for that person to summon a large group of cultivators to ambush him, intending to seize the magic artifact in his possession. Angered, Guwen's killing intent intensified. One betrayal after another, jealousy, and feuds kept unfolding. What an impressive turn of events. Indeed, this was the dark great heaven and earth, and the world seemed excessively grim. Over the first 50 years, Guwen encountered not a single kind-hearted cultivator. He was fighting alone the entire time. The most distressing part for him was that, in order to get back at him, his enemies extracted the souls of his family still in the mountain village and refined them into resentful ghosts to be embedded in ghost devices. Furious, Guwen became even more ruthless in his subsequent choices, always responding to killing with killing. His lifespan accumulated rapidly, and by 50, he had reached the cultivation level of loose immortal realm, becoming the East Profound Domain's killing god. At the age of 65, you encountered the girl you once spared, Qingjialan. She had now become a disciple of the Blue Sky Holy Sect, a renowned genius. She recognized you and was very grateful. You were moved by her attitude. At 66, pursued by Qingjialan, you both became Daoist friends. At 67, Qingjialan gave birth to a son and a daughter for you, and you cherished her even more. At 68, while you were cultivating, a wandering carefree primordial immortal from the Blue Sky Holy Sect descended. He was known as the Black Profound Emperor and crushed you to death. Reincarnation ends. What? It's over already? Guwen nearly spit blood. For 10 million years of lifespan, he only got 68 years of life? Black Profound Emperor. Okay, very good. Without giving Guwen time to ponder more, a vast array of memories flooded his mind, the life of Chu Lu, as if he had experienced it himself. However, since it was reincarnation evolution, he didn't feel the length during the assimilation process. It was like recalling past memories, recalling some experiences, a rather peculiar sensation. Although he only lived for 68 years in this life, Chu Lu improved a cultivation technique over his lifetime, and even evolved it into a divine skill that caused a sensation in both the past and the present. Developed from the 7 hearts technique after numerous enhancements, it is now known as the 7 divine gold bodies. 7 divine gold bodies with an inherent cultivation technique. Once mastered, it forms 7 souls, each equipped with divine skills, allowing him to resurrect even if killed. In memory, getting crushed by the Black Profound Emperor wasn't as straightforward. He resurrected 6 times in the Black Profound Emperor's hands, but the result was the same. The gap in cultivation level was too vast. His teleportation divine power was unable to let him escape. After assimilating the 7 divine gold bodies, Gu En felt somewhat placated. It is hard to say if the value of the 7 divine gold bodies could match 10 million years of lifespan, but it certainly was not something to be gained with just 1 or 2 million years of lifespan. The skill was extremely powerful, allowing nascent soul realm Chu Lu to severely injure enemies of the 2nd level of Wandering Immortal Realm, proving its strength. Sigh, it was not enough perseverance. Gu En realized that in reincarnation evolution, he could only make decisions at destiny's turning points and couldn't control his reincarnated self. Thinking about it, didn't this mean that all other worlds of reincarnation also had their own thought processes? Isn't this also the case with reincarnation in reality? Ji Xiaoyu in this life was completely different from her previous life. Gu En withdrew his thoughts, noticing that the ground was full of spiritual energy. This showed that reincarnation evolution also consumed real-world spiritual energy. Fortunately, he had changed locations to avoid affecting the Supreme Sect and the continent. Time to get down to real business. Today, he would break through a major realm. Gu En accessed the attribute panel and poured 20 million years of lifespan into physique. Primordial karmic body advanced to primordial chaos body, then ascended to primordial ultimate body. Awakening the great divine power, the primordial chaos grand disk. This divine skill was an amalgamation of attack, defense, and sealing abilities, larger and more formidable than regular heaven and earth rules, possessing the might to crush heaven and earth rules. Gu En immediately trained this divine skill to mastery realm. Vast spiritual energy surged into Gu En's mind, and his consciousness entered a state of sudden enlightenment. Primordial ultimate body and primordial karmic body, although both named after primordial, had a huge disparity. By reaching ultimate body, one could easily see through heaven and earth rules as well as cause and effect, exerting absolute suppression over the primordial body type. Although Gu En had not yet encountered a primordial body type, he felt that primordial must exist. After all, it was achieved through the elevation of his own body type, indicating that if the mortals of the great heavenly spirit land traced back their ancestry, they might very well be linked to primordial. He just did not know where primordial was located. As Gu En devoured the spiritual energy, the silent and gloomy sea stirred into a tempest, as a powerful divine sense swept across the sea. Unfortunately, no matter how much it searched, it could not find Gu En. An ancient hour later, Gu En finally opened his eyes, and his physique was completely transformed into a primordial ultimate body. His current strength had reached a terrifying level, and the sensation of power was exceedingly delightful. He even wanted to find someone to test his newfound strength against. Fortunately, he resisted the urge. Cannot drift away. Chu Lu was too overconfident, killing throughout his path, only to be crushed to death by a cultivator several major realms above. Gu En looked at the cultivation technique section. Primordial chaos, supreme holy skill, and all things form and energy art were each worth 20 million years of lifespan. The reason he only used 20 million years of lifespan was that he started to covet the function that would unlock with 1 billion years of lifespan. Chapter 301. Breakthrough to the 9th layer of the Tao Void Mysterious Immortal Realm. In the next ancient hour, Gu En enhanced the primordial chaos supreme holy skill to the great accomplishment of infinite primordial creation, and yet, 20 million years of lifespan only advanced him by 1 level, luckily reaching the peak of perfection. At the same time, he awakened the divine skill, unlimited avatars. Every element of the 5 elements spiritual energy could turn into an avatar. This divine skill's combat power wasn't particularly outstanding as it manifested in quantity, since the 5 elements spiritual energy existed everywhere. He continued to advance. The all things form and energy art was elevated to the chaotic myriad forms freedom technique, and then further to the Tao Void mysterious divine thought skill. Similarly costing 20 million years of lifespan, no new divine skills were awakened, but the technique itself was a divine skill. The Tao Void mysterious divine thought skill, once mastered, would not be restricted by rules. With a mere thought he could suppress cultivation level, breath, appearance, and everything else, making them unperceivable to others. With this technique, there was no need for Guwen to use transformation techniques. Of course, what he valued most was its marvelous effect in hiding cultivation level and breadth. In the reincarnation evolution, Chu Lu died quickly exactly because he lacked this technique. Of course, trusting Qing Jialan also played a part. After Guwen passed on the Dao Void mysterious divine thought skill, another ancient hour had passed. Next was the promotion of the boundless heaven-constricting sword to the eternal boundless divine sword. The limitless freedom step was finally elevated to the stepping path of age's step, a technique that allowed time reversal within a specific range of each footstep, transforming all things from death to life, from life to null. Of course, this stepping technique couldn't aid in achieving immortality since it had limitations and was primarily used for combat. The 9 extremes yin-yang body was finally advanced to the Tao of transcending void body. Guwen also enhanced the soul-capturing skill, promoting it to the great imprisoned soul immortal technique, consuming 5 million years of lifespan. The previous 3 ultimate skills and divine skills each consumed 20 million years of lifespan, totaling 65 million years of lifespan. Adding the physique and cultivation technique, Guwen had already spent 105 million years of lifespan. The consumption from the lifespan barrier was also a significant figure. Even without breaking through, he felt invincible at this moment. But he needed to be cautious. He must break through. Guwen reopened the attribute panel, focusing his gaze on the cultivation level column. At this moment, the entire ocean was experiencing a violent storm, with endless towering waves, as the divine sense of a carefree primordial immortal frantically scanned the area. Guwen didn't mind since the area was mostly inhabited by lost souls and wild ghosts who wandered the mortal world, suffering from the rejection of the heaven and earth rules. He hesitated for a moment, then decided to invest 5 million years of his lifespan. It was uncertain whether the early investment of 100 million years of lifespan could erase the gap in the difficulty of cultivation between the divine immortal of wondrous dharma and higher realms. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 30,000 years, forcefully attempting to assault the Tao void mysterious immortal realm with the great accomplishment of infinite primordial creation, starting the tribulation crossing. You didn't endure the 6 realms destiny ultimate void tribulation, failing the tribulation, 30,000 years for 1 tribulation crossing. Guwen was thrilled, knowing that previously, when he attempted to reach the divine immortal of wondrous dharma realm, it took 60,000 years for 1 chance to cross the tribulation. However, even more surprising events occurred. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 300,000 years, you endured the 6 realms destiny ultimate void tribulation with the forceful use of the great accomplishment of infinite primordial creation, and succeeded in the tribulation crossing, advancing your cultivation level to the first layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal realm. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 500,000 years, advancing your cultivation level to the second layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal realm. 10 successful crossings. I'm really fucking strong. Guwen was ecstatic, but as he looked further, his smile gradually faded. The time required for each level in the Tao void mysterious immortal realm kept increasing. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 4 million years, advancing your cultivation level to the 8th layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal realm. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 4.7 million years, advancing your cultivation level to the 9th layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal realm. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 5 million years, forcefully assailing the divine thought true immortal realm with the great accomplishment of infinite primordial creation, starting the tribulation crossing. You didn't endure the heavenly Tao 49 mysterious void tribulation, failing the tribulation. That's good. Reaching the 9th layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal realm in 5 million years was an unexpectedly pleasant surprise. But what's after was shocking. An attempt of tribulation every 300,000 years. If following the old pattern, failing 100 times would mean 30 million years of lifespan. Failing 200 times would mean 60 million years of lifespan. That's ridiculously exaggerated. Is the divine thought true immortal that mighty? It's a big leap. Guan didn't question it much, given he hadn't even heard of the Tao void mysterious immortal, let alone the higher divine thought true immortal. Once again, nature's spiritual energy surged towards him. The entire ocean's spiritual energy abruptly sank, and its range rapidly expanded. Damn, this commotion is a bit excessive. Guan was secretly alarmed, feeling he might once again bring about a calamity to the mortal world. The vast amounts of spiritual energy required to transition from the 9th layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma to the 9th layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal far exceeded Guan's imagination. However, he could judge the resources of the great heavenly spirit land through this disturbance. If his breakthrough affected the entire great heavenly spirit land, it would indicate that the Tao void mysterious realm cultivators in the great heavenly spirit land were few and far between. While feeling the transformation within himself, Guan observed the surroundings. The range of spiritual energy extraction grew larger, and in less than 30 minutes, it exceeded the size of the area the great cold demon sect planned to annihilate and was still rapidly increasing. Time swiftly passed. An hour later, Guan forcefully achieved the Tao void mysterious immortal. Regardless of the realm, the evolutionary cultivation would always compress the breakthrough into 1 hour. The mysteries of the Tao void mysterious immortal flooded into his mind. A Tao void mysterious immortal could transcend universal rules and travel through the Great Thousand World. The so-called Great Thousand World consists of countless realms like the Great Heavenly Spirit Land, and only reaching this level would one touch the barriers of the universe. Of course, not all universes can be easily traversed, as there are also differences in strength among them. The power of a mysterious immortal is even greater, capable of transforming all things into living beings. Reaching this level means starting to condense one's own Tao. The so-called Tao is the condensation of the overall path of immortal cultivation, manifesting as will, capable of condensing a Tao form and using it to battle and suppress everything. Guan was immersed in the transformation brought by the Tao void mysterious immortal, unable to extricate himself. Only when his cultivation level broke through to the 2nd layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal realm did his consciousness awaken. He looked up. The universe no longer looked so distant to him. His gaze and divine sense reached perfect unity, allowing him even to peer into the ends of the universe. He saw the silent destruction domain described by Zia, a place of utter darkness emitting a terrifying aura that made it difficult for him to infiltrate lightly. For he sensed auras within that made him wary, not just one, but several. Time continued to move forward. Guan began to detect the approach of various cultivators' aura. Looking up, he saw a massive number of cultivators flying out of the Holy Land where the Holy Court was located, quickly approaching, the numbers even surpassing those of the Great Cold Demon Sect. His breakthrough had indeed alarmed the Holy Court. It must be said, compared to the Holy Court, the Great Cold Demon Sect was utterly incomparable. The cultivators who flew out were of loose immortal realm at the lowest, numbering over 5 million and still increasing. More than 5 million loose immortals. What an exaggeration. He even sensed the aura of divine immortals of wondrous Dharma and carefree primordial immortals, with more than 10 divine immortals of wondrous Dharma among them. The cultivators of the Holy Court dispersed to protect various continents and islands. The ocean stirred up world-shocking waves, the speed of the sinking spiritual energy causing many continents to shatter. Seeing the Holy Court coming out to protect the common people, Guan breathed a sigh of relief, holding the Holy Court in much higher regard. He didn't want his breakthrough to result in the extinction of countless beings. It seems the support of the Great Cold Demon Sect by the Holy Court was only the will of that Holy King. If the Holy Court became his enemy in the future, regardless of the animosity, simply for today's actions of the Holy Court, he wouldn't thoroughly exterminate them. Of course, it would be even better if he could establish friendly relations with the Holy Court. Cultivation doesn't have to be all about fighting and killing. The benefits derived from slaughtering the Great Cold Demon Sect were indeed massive, but it also attracted much wariness. Look now, the battle just ended, and divine immortals of wondrous Dharma have shown up, a realm previously unheard of. If he became too arrogant and a more terrifying existence than the divine thought true immortal appeared and slapped him to death with one palm, what could he do? The experience of Chu Lu was a lesson. Of course, more of Chu Lu's death was due to trusting the wrong person. Guwen couldn't help but curse at him, "How dare you marry into the family of someone you killed?" Although initially, Chu Lu was the victim, he should have stayed away from Qing Jialan. With the Holy Court taking action, Guwen felt even more at ease. He began to focus on enjoying the transformation of the Dao Void Mysterious Immortal. Reaching the 9th layer of the Dao Void Mysterious Immortal realm, what could the Holy King behind the Great Cold Demon sect do to him? If that Holy King was also a Dao Void Mysterious Immortal, then Guwen would fight with all his might to achieve another breakthrough. Chapter 302. Absolutely not intoxicating. Under the cloak of night, the vast ocean was riddled with shadows of great cultivators flitting by, and many sea monsters leaped out of the water, making the night all the more terrifying. The isolated island where Guwen was situated was surrounded by terrifying waves, which could engulf it at any moment. Yet, he was still waiting for the breakthrough to conclude. The amount of spiritual energy needed for each minor realm within the Dao Void Mysterious Immortal realm far exceeded that for breakthroughs in previous major realms. Guwen had been observing the outside world, for he wanted to know the impact of this breakthrough on the great heavenly spirit land. By now, the range of the descending spiritual energy had become enormously exaggerated. However, in comparison to the entire great heavenly spirit land, it was still not sufficient to shake the whole. The great heavenly spirit land was far too vast. Even though Guwen could now see beyond the heavens, he could not overlook the vastness within the great heavenly spirit land. As time elapsed, more and more great cultivators arrived to protect the oceans from all corners, and even sects that Guwen previously dared not spy upon sent out great cultivators. Even the dynasty populated entirely by heavenly spirit life forms had sent people out. Guwen suddenly discovered an interesting point. The Immortal Spirit Dynasty and the Holy Court were situated on opposite sides of the great heavenly spirit land, as distant from each other as possible, giving a clear demarcation. He would have to find an opportunity to learn about the Immortal Spirit Dynasty from Bai Zia next time. Guwen saw that apart from this stretch of the ocean, the continents and islands and other seas were all protected by great cultivators, even floating in the air near the continent where the supreme sect was located, holding back the waves. The Holy Court's efficiency was truly formidable. It could offer swift protection to the common people within a short period of time, truly worthy of its name. It is worth mentioning that the carefree primordial immortal of this ocean region had been the target of a manhunt. He was besieged by several other carefree primordial immortals and had already fled to outer heaven. Guwen couldn't help but mourn him silently. My sin, my sin. Although the other party became involved because of him, Guwen had no choice. He had to break through. Going anywhere would attract attention. Going to outer heaven would attract at least those at the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, which would be far too dangerous. However, considering the current commotion, Guwen's next breakthrough would have to take place outside of heaven. Although outer heaven was dangerous, Dao Void Mysterious Immortal was not weak. Guwen had already seen the words, Divine Thought True Immortal, and had a vast lifespan. He couldn't feel at ease without reaching the 9th layer of Divine Thought True Immortal. He would have to control his next breakthrough a bit more. Reaching the 9th layer, he would have to restrain himself and not prematurely peer into the name of the next realm, lest his heart itch with curiosity. Guwen thought silently to himself. The anomalies above the ocean had not affected outer heaven. The moon set and the sun rose. When morning arrived, the turmoil of spiritual energy over the ocean gradually returned to calm. Guwen had finally reached the 9th level of Dao Void Mysterious Immortal. He slowly opened his eyes, and the golden patterns on his forehead shone with an illusory vertical golden eye. The pupil of the primordial divine eye was gradually turning black, then deep gray, making this vertical eye all the more terrifying and oppressive. With a thought, Guwen caused the primordial divine eye to disappear. He slowly stood up. Without taking a step, his figure vanished on the spot from the island. Almost instantaneously, He arrived within the Nianchu cave of Heavenly Phoenix Mountain. Tian Yaoer, Tian Qing, and Tian Bai were all immersed in cultivation. The cave was quiet, save for the sound of dripping water, exuding a profound serenity. Guwen clapped his hands, and the three demons awoke. They quickly came out of the house and upon seeing Guwen, were overjoyed and rushed to meet him. Master, what exactly happened outside these past 2 days? Yes, indeed, such a terrifying aura came through. Master, are you all right? The three demons chattered excitedly, their questions buzzing with enthusiasm. Guwen felt a pang of guilt. He should have visited sooner. Instead, he had let them worry for so long. Come on, let's go to the outer world cave, Guwen called out, then took the three demons away with him. Along the way, the three demons talked incessantly, and Guwen did not hide anything from them, recounting the calamities they encountered outside. Divine exotic resentful ghosts, divine exotic ghost kings, the great cold demon sect, the heavenly fire catastrophe, and more. All of these stories made them tremble with fear. But hearing from Guwen that the calamity had passed, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. They began to wonder who had resolved the calamity. Guwen said even he wasn't sure. When they arrived at the outer world cave, Guwen raised his hand. Countless storage bags, storage rings, and storage dharma artifacts flew out of his sleeves and piled up on the open ground. The three demons were stunned. Tian Yaoer couldn't help but ask, "Why are there so many?" Guwen didn't answer. After piling the collected storage dharma artifacts into a mountain, he swept over them with his divine sense, dispelling all restrictions. In an instant, he obliterated anything that might be harmful. I entrust these to you. On ordinary days, refrain from touching them to avoid attracting powerful beings, Guwen warned them. In truth, no matter how much they handled them, they wouldn't attract other cultivators. He was only worried they might accidentally harm themselves. The three demons nodded blankly, still not fully grasping the situation. Guwen didn't explain further and disappeared on the spot. Tian Bai came to her senses and tentatively asked, "Could the mysterious great power who saved us from the calamity be our master?" Tian Yaoer had a strange expression. Long suspecting that Guwen downplayed his own strength when he said he was no match for the Heaven Phoenix Demon Mother, she became even more certain now. She just didn't understand why Guwen would hide his true cultivation level. Elsewhere, Guwen returned to the Supreme Sect. The continent where the Supreme Sect resided had not been affected by the disturbances of the previous night, though the winds between the heavens and the earth were a bit stronger. He first returned to the 8 scenic caves to inform Jiang Qiong that the great cold demon sect had been eradicated. Jiang Qiong was shocked and immediately left. Guwen didn't follow her. Instead, he used the teleportation array in the valley to return to the Third Medicine Valley. Even after 2 days had passed, the atmosphere in the valley was still lively. Most people were discussing the great cold demon sect. Stealing the 5 elements and 9-finger divine lord resumed their chess game, occasionally shouting, drawing laughter from the surrounding disciples. The servant disciples who were laboring were also spirited, and even the white spirit rat under the mystic pure tree was unusually awake, lying at Enzin's feet, enjoying her petting. Everything seemed so harmonious, bringing a smile to Guwen's face. He had taken the risk to intervene so that he could see such a scene every day. Guwen walked towards his own loft, his divine sense turned towards outer heaven. His next breakthrough had to take place in outer heaven. He wondered if it was because of last night's anomaly, but there were many great cultivators patrolling above the great heavenly spirit land. Although their cultivation levels were not as high as his, he still didn't want to appear at this critical juncture. He would wait for those great cultivators to disperse before he went to outer heaven for the breakthrough. With his remaining lifespan, breaking through to divine thought true immortal should not be difficult. Thinking of this, Guwen's mood became even more pleasant. He hummed a tune as he ascended to his loft, where the blood prison great saint, lying in wait, watched his master, deep in thought. After Guwen entered and closed the door, blood prison great saint finally thought, "The master seems to have become stronger again. How high is his realm?" On the day the great cold demon sect attacked, The colossal figure that stood taller than heaven and earth fell into the eyes of Blood Prison Great Saint, and he immediately knew that it was his master. He felt more than ever that ending up in Guwen's hands was an incredible stroke of fate. Others couldn't get such a chance even if they wanted it. Thinking this, he wore a proud smile. Considering the millennium term, it now seemed like nothing in comparison. When the millennium came, he would choose to stay and continue to serve Guwen, whether as an ox or a horse. He had already set his sights on the position of the head disciple of the Third Medicine Valley. Considering Nzin's talent, he was sure she would be buried by then, so who could compete with him? As for Yang Jian, he would definitely want to venture out. The boy also had such ambition. At the same time, inside the loft, Guwen sat in a chair and lay down in the position he found most comfortable. Looking at his remaining lifespan of over 600 million years, the corners of his mouth just couldn't help but turn up. He must not become complacent. He would have to continue cultivating medicinal herbs in the future. Dao Void Mysterious Immortal was not his final destination, nor would Divine Thought True Immortal be. He had to keep growing stronger. Right now, he was indeed powerful, but there were still things in the world he could not see through, and thus needed to keep cultivating diligently. For the next few days, Guwen began moving between the various medicine valleys, returning to his usual life. During this time, Sage Shen Miao of the North Sea Mountain inquired about his opinion of Sword Venerable Fudao. Guwen casually praised him without elaborating much. 5 days later, Guwen noticed a group of cultivators with strong cultivation levels sneaking into the continent, investigating the public opinion about Sword Venerable Fudao. These cultivators were all from the Holy Court. It was not just this continent. Cultivators from the Holy Court were also investigating the Great Cold Demon Sect and the surrounding seas. Guwen did not intervene. The Holy Court beginning to investigate the Great Cold Demon Sect suggested that the matter had alarmed the upper echelons of the Holy Court, and the Holy King could no longer act unilaterally. After harvesting all the mature medicinal herbs in the various medicine valleys, Guwen began to relax and rest. He found Nine-Finger Divine Lord and played a game of chess, winning 3 rounds in a row. Stealing the 5 Elements became interested and wanted to play as well. Starting from Gu An's first move, an hour later, Guwen stood up, holding the 7 stars mirror as a fan, strutting off in a superior manner. Stealing the 5 Elements sat stunned on the stone stool, gazing at the chessboard, utterly lost in thought. The surrounding disciples were thrilled, all praising Guwen. Stealing the 5 Elements had always been winning, quite arrogantly at that. Seeing their master defeat him, how could the disciples not be exhilarated? Nine-Finger Divine Lord was amused. It turned out it wasn't that he was inadequate. Rather, Guwen truly possessed extraordinary comprehension in the ways of chess. Guwen left amid the cheers of the disciples, his face wearing a smug smile. Play against me? You'll need another 100 million years of practice. Guwen admitted that those at the 9th layer of heaven and earth flying immortal realm were powerful, just 27 small realms below him. Returning to the loft, Guwen sat down and opened his attribute panel. He felt regret over the previous lifespan samsara and wished to start another game. After all, there were still plenty of Holy Court great cultivators patrolling outside heaven, so there was no rush to break through. Just one game, and definitely not getting carried away. You consume 10 million years of lifespan to initiate 1 reincarnation evolution. Connecting with Tao rules. Searching for reincarnation worlds. You can choose one of the following worlds. 1. Great Heavenly Spirit Land. 2. 9 Extreme Great Heaven and Earth. 3. Dark Great Heaven and Earth. Guwen hesitated for a moment before deciding he would still choose the Dark Great Heaven and Earth. Where one falls, there one shall rise. This time, he would not repeat the same mistakes. You have chosen to reincarnate into the Dark Great Heaven and Earth. Considering that the Tao rules of this world cannot conceal your talent, you shall retain your ability to seize lifespan, but you will not be able to unlock stage-wise functions. Reincarnation evolution begins. In the first year, you are born into a noble household within the Beiqian domain's Great Xia Holy Dynasty, blessed by your parents with the name Shao Xingtian. At the age of 5, while you are fast asleep, you fall victim to poisoning by a concubine of your father's third wife. Before you lose consciousness, you glimpse her figure. Fortunately, your mother discovers you in time, allowing for your rescue. Once your strength returns, your grandfather gathers the family in the Great Hall. Faced with your grandfather's query, will you choose to expose that you were poisoned by the third wife's concubine? Chapter 303 Fighting Will. Gu N's hostility. Seeing the prompt of reincarnation evolution, Guan hesitated. If it had been earlier, he would have definitely chosen to expose the crimes of the third concubine to seek justice for himself, but Chu Lu's short life had left him with a psychological shadow. Although lifespan samsara was just an evolution and would not harm his original self, he was toying with 10 million years of lifespan. Moreover, the prompt was brief, and he couldn't analyze the specifics of the situation or understand the background of the third concubine. What if exposing her would bring about a deadly disaster? Forget it, he should endure it for now. Although it was a grieving, it wasn't something he personally experienced. You choose to reveal you were poisoned by the third concubine. A turmoil in the Shao Kingdom's mansion thus resolved. At the age of 8, you began to practice swordsmanship and accidentally cut a spirit grass during the process, claiming 8 years of lifespan and marking a turning point in your life of immortal cultivation. At 12, thanks to lifespan evolution, your cultivation level broke through to the nascent soul realm. At 17, the Great Ming Dynasty was besieged by 3 dynasties, the lands shattered, and you followed the Shao family's southward migration, continuously encountering attacks and fierce battles, and your lifespan grew quickly. At 18, during the escape, you encountered 2 severely injured cultivators, one male and one female, each begging you to save them and kill the other, plunging you into hesitation. You choose to save the male or the female, to kill the male or the female. Neither save nor kill. Guan made his choice without hesitation. You didn't make a move, you watched the 2 die, and after their death, you took their storage bags. Seeing this line of prompt, Guan almost cursed loudly. Why so impulsive? The following years were filled with various escapes and battles. At 27, an elder of the Great Daoist sect from the Mahayana realm suspected you of slaughtering his descendants since you possessed their descendants' storage bag. You vehemently denied it, yet he still tried to kill you, and finally, both of you were heavily injured, and you got separated from your family. Fighting a Mahayan realm cultivator at the age of 27, Shao Xingtian indeed had some substance. It seems his path was quite wild. Guan lamented in his heart. He could only see a general description and didn't know how many enemies Shao Xingtian had killed during this process. At 30, you entered the Luoqing sect to focus on cultivation. At 45, the Shao family was slaughtered. Deeply grieving upon learning this, you began to investigate who the enemy was. At 50, after 5 years of investigation, you found that the power that slaughtered the Shao family was the Li family from the East Profound Domain. You left the Luoqing sect alone to rush to the East Profound Domain. Seeing the words East Profound Domain, Guan secretly felt that something was amiss. Why, out of nowhere, was his family destroyed again? Speaking of which, Guan in this life also had no relatives, living alone in the Ji family mansion. Could this be fate? At 60, you stormed the secret realm assessment of the East Profound Saint Mansion, swept through the geniuses of East Profound Domain, and became renowned throughout the world. At 70, you cultivated the Heavenly Gang Holy Body in the East Profound Saint Mansion. The mansion master favored you greatly, wishing to betroth his youngest daughter to you, whether you accept. Do not accept. You refused the mansion master's goodwill. He then took you as a disciple, and you received great cultivation resources from the East Profound Saint Mansion. Guan smiled when he saw this. That's more like it. The following life was filled with various cultivations. Shao Xingtian continually enhanced his physique, cultivation technique, and divine skills. His choices were limited, focusing on only one method of each type. Years swiftly passed. At 137, you participated in the holy competitions of the 5 domains. With an overwhelmingly dominant appearance, you claimed the title of the strongest prodigy of the era, and the name of the heavenly gang holy body spread across the great heaven and earth. At 138, you encountered a cultivator from the Leaf family during an externship. Due to a deep-seated hatred, you erupted into conflict with the Leaf family, encountering a mysterious carefree primordial immortal who intervened and nearly killed you. Fortunately, a cultivator named Hanging Pot saved you when you were severely injured. At 139, before your injuries fully healed, the Leaf family attacked again, vowing to annihilate you. Hanging Pot consumed his true yuan, using a great divine power to shift you and his children into a space-time rift. The three of you fell into the Dark Continent. At 140, Hanging Pot's son couldn't withstand the invasion of dark powers, ultimately perishing, his soul turning into a dark undead and disappearing, and you took his sister to search for him. At 142, the two of you failed to escape the Dark Continent. Hanging Pot's daughter also turned into a dark undead. You, enraged, began slaughtering the dark undead of the Dark Continent. At 143, you encountered the Black Profound Emperor from the Dao Void mysterious immortal realm, who extinguished your soul. Reincarnation ends. What? Damn Black Profound Emperor again. How did he reach the Dao Void mysterious immortal realm this time? Gu and his eyes widened, his anger uncontainable. If the Black Profound Emperor had the ability to anticipate lifespan, he would have already sensed the intense hostility from Guan. This guy had been squatting on him for 2 lifetimes. How could he bear it? Guan immediately vanished inside the room and teleported to the ocean floor of another world. Then he activated the lifespan barrier. A surge of vast memories rushed into his mind. An hour later, Guan opened his eyes, his face showing complex emotions. Xianxia's life was more splendid than Chu Lu's, advancing triumphantly, enjoying life fiercely with gratitude and resentment, possessing the fame of the strongest talent of the contemporary era, and he also encountered many beautiful women. Regrettably, he still died. In his memories, Guan learned about the horrors of the Dark Continent, which was even larger than the entire great heavenly spirit land, impossible to fly to the outer heaven, the world dim and vast, as if never able to escape, and a mysterious power called Dark Force devouring him. If not for the sufficiently powerful heavenly gang holy body, Xianxia might not have lasted until the day he met the Black Profound Emperor. It must be said, the Dao Void mysterious immortal realm Black Profound Emperor was truly terrifying. Guan not only possessed memories but could also deeply experience the feelings of the time. When the Black Profound Emperor killed him, he seemed to deliberately preserve his flesh. The thought of his body being used by the Black Profound Emperor really irked Guan. He also did not know where the Dark Continent was, whether the timing could match up, and if they met, if the opponent's cultivation was not as good as his, he must make the Black Profound Emperor truly feel despair. The second reincarnation evolution ended at only 143 years old, which was quite annoying. However, the gain was greater than last time. Although the heavenly gang holy body was not as good as his primordial ultimate body, he could pass it on to his disciples in the future. The real gain was Xianxia's will. Xianxia cultivated a kind of fighting will. The more severe the injury, the stronger the burst of strength, capable of sweeping all opponents of the same realm, and even had a chance to counterkill higher realm opponents. Of course, for Guan, the main use of the fighting will was manifested in crossing the tribulation. With this will, would his evolutionary practice in crossing the tribulation be easier? Guan felt deeply and pondered whether he in the Dao Void mysterious immortal realm was stronger than the Black Profound Emperor. With his whole Bodhis ultimate skills, he really wanted to try challenging the Black Profound Emperor. He then disappeared from the seabed, returning to the attic of the Third Medicine Valley. Although merging memories caused some disturbance, it wasn't as significant as his previous breakthrough. Guan sat on a chair, suddenly feeling like trying again. He couldn't pick the Dark Continent next time. There was no need to stubbornly confront the Black Profound Emperor. Forget it. Bad luck. In the reincarnation evolution, Guan could only make significant choices. He couldn't control how his evolving self specifically acted, meaning reincarnation evolution was unknown. Since it was unknown, it needed to be mystical. Moreover, Guan still needed to break through. He couldn't get overexcited and delay his breakthrough. Guwen took out the Green Hero travelogue and flipped through a few pages, completely shifting his thoughts. This book is truly incredible. Even if Xianxia died now, with this book, in Guwen's heart, he was a saint. The news of the great cold demon sect being wiped out by Sword Venerable Fudao spread wildly for a long time, making Sword Venerable Fudao's fame spread even wider. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed, and time came to the end of the year. Winter's snow covered the vast heaven and earth. Guwen was writing a book in the attic, recording all the Daoist sorcery and ultimate skills practiced by Chu Lu and Xiao Shengtian in his lifetime into a secret book, not wishing to immediately disseminate it but just writing for fun. If it could prove useful later, he could directly bring it out. He suddenly sensed something, raised an eyebrow, then put down his pen and vanished inside the room. Far away on the ocean, Bai Zia lay on a large gourd, the gourd soaring among the clouds, his legs crossed, looking very stylish. He sensed an aura and immediately opened his eyes, leaping up. Then he saw a figure swiftly approaching, his face breaking into a surprised smile. It was Meng Lang, whom he wanted to see. Guwen quickly flew in front of Bai Zia and greeted with a fist and palm salute. Daoist friend Bai, didn't expect to meet you here. Bai Zia frankly stated his purpose, then greeted him back, smiling. Daoist friend Meng, long time no see, are you well? Have you been affected by the great cold demon sect? He had already flown into the area endangered by the great cold demon sect. Of course, this was just the peripheral region, so Guwen dared to meet him. No, I wasn't here at the time, I only came back after hearing that the great cold demon sect was extinguished. Guwen shook his head. Doing well? Quite good, just broke through to the 9th layer of the Dao Void mysterious immortal realm. Bai Zia invited Guwen onto the gourd, and he unceremoniously joined. The two began discussing the great cold demon sect and Sword Venerable Fudao. Bai Zia was shocked by this matter. He didn't expect such a big event to occur within the great heavenly spirit land. Although the great cold demon sect wasn't comparable to mortal world peak, it wouldn't be far off. To wipe out the great cold demon sect with one's own power, its Daoist level was unimaginable. There were still survivors from the great cold demon sect, but they were like scattered monkeys after a tree falls, many enemies kicking them while down. Bai Zia was very curious about Sword Venerable Fudao, asking Guwen when this person had emerged. Guwen then said he was in seclusion before, also unsure when Sword Venerable Fudao appeared. The two talked for a long time, and the conversation was mostly Guwen asking questions and Bai Zia patiently answering. An hour later, Guwen suddenly asked, Daoist friend Bai, have you ever heard of the Dark Continent? Bai Zia frowned, surprised. He asked, the Dark Continent? Never heard of it. Is it powerful? Where is it? Hearing this, Guwen could only say, I'm not clear either, just heard a senior mention this name, so I was curious. Afterward, he bid farewell to Bai Zia. Bai Zia hurriedly said, Mortal World Peak will soon hold a 10,000-year summit. You must come, officially taking over as Peak Master. Guwen nodded, then flew toward the direction away from the Supreme Sect. As he flew far away, Bai Zia muttered, Dark Continent, why does it feel like I've heard it somewhere? Chapter 304. Breakthrough to the Divine Thought True Immortal Realm 9 Layers. After bidding farewell to Bai Zia, Guwen took a detour, only then returning to the 3rd Medicine Valley. He finished writing the current secret book, then went downstairs to join the disciples in shoveling snow. During the process of shoveling snow, his thoughts were constantly in outer heaven. When would those wandering cultivators of the Holy Court disperse? They couldn't stop Guwen. He was just worried that the noise from his breakthrough would be too loud and attract them near the lifespan barrier. What if someone intruded? Guwen didn't want to make unnecessary enemies with the Holy Court, nor did he want anyone to discover his true cultivation level. He could only wait. As winter passed and spring arrived, the years went by. The news of Sword Venerable Fudao's world-saving feats spread widely across this region of the mortal world, earning more and more praises, and his fame spread throughout the great heaven and earth. Relative to the tumultuous seas, the continent quickly calmed down since they had heard of Sword Venerable Fudao's feats not for the first time. However, A change in the dynamics occurred in the human race's world. The forces that had fled returned but could no longer maintain their former dominance, while those who stayed behind gained more support and developed rapidly. The other continent on the Nine Nether Road was even more dangerous. The sects and families of the Taizong dynasty couldn't secure a footing there, and the fleeing forces returned in disgrace within a few years. Jiang Qiong also returned to the Juhua sect, beginning to develop the sect peacefully. Gu N's days returned to being leisurely. Before he knew it, 10 years had passed. The wandering cultivators of the holy court outside heaven finally dispersed, and Guwen was waiting for this day. He immediately set off, leaving quietly. In just one step, he reached the depths of the universe, flying towards a location he had chosen long ago. It was a gigantic meteorite, even larger than the continent where the supreme sect was located. Guwen landed on the meteor. Looking around, the great heavenly spirit land seemed very distant. Reckoned for a heaven and earth flying immortal, it would also be impossible to spy with the naked eye. Turning around, the universe's depths behind him were extremely dark. From here to the silent destruction domain was closer than to the great heavenly spirit land. This was also intentional on his part, to make the holy court think that the anomalies were caused by a heavenly demon. He sat down on the spot, activating the lifespan barrier. He then pulled up his attribute panel. Name, Guwen, lifespan, 220/639, 660, 342, physique, primordial ultimate body, cultivation level, divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm 9th layer. This lifespan was truly a delight to behold. He had to be more careful about this breakthrough. The last time he crossed the lifespan barrier, he had consumed tens of millions of years of lifespan, a figure that could not be ignored. Guwen took a deep breath, deciding to directly aim for a breakthrough in cultivation level. Tribulation every 300,000 years, still quite frightening. 1 billion, get on board. You practiced chi absorption cultivation for 300,000 years. With the great accomplishment of the infinitive creation dharma, you forcefully struck at the divine thought true immortal realm, began facing the tribulation. You failed to endure 49 heavenly Tao mysterious void tribulations, and the tribulation failed. You practiced chi absorption cultivation for 600,000 years. With the great accomplishment of the infinitive creation dharma, you forcefully struck at the divine thought true immortal realm, began facing the tribulation. You failed to endure 49 heavenly Tao mysterious void tribulations, and the tribulation failed. Guwen remained expressionless, already used to failure. No matter, he still had 5 billion years. He didn't believe they could drain him completely. However, something terrible happened. When his tribulation failures exceeded 100 times, his expression became grave. When his tribulation failures exceeded 200 times, his expression became ugly. When 1 billion years were all used up, he was on the verge of a breakdown. What was this heavenly Tao 49 mysterious void tribulation? Was it this absurd? Once Guwen successfully broke through, he must investigate the origin of this heavenly tribulation. Even within the same realm, heavenly tribulations are not fixed. Taking mortal world peak, for instance, their recorded types of heavenly tribulations exceeded 10,000. The rule summarized by the immortal cultivation world is that the more powerful you are within the same realm, the more terrifying the heavenly tribulation. However, those cultivators, despite an increased difficulty in their tribulation, could rely on formations, dharma treasures, and sect teachings for support. Guwen could only rely on himself, owning no dharma treasures. After a full aspect promotion, he himself was terrifyingly strong. How could such a him fail more than 300 times? Guwen gritted his teeth, choosing to commit 30 million years of lifespan. From 1 billion to 30 million, it wasn't that he was frightened. He just felt he was close to succeeding and didn't want to waste lifespan. However, all failed again. Guwen's eyes began to redden. He couldn't believe it. Another 30 million years. Dare to consume 500 million years. When Guwen's thoughts settled, he still failed. Another 30 million years. Failed. Just as Guwen was preparing to continue investing, The prompt finally changed its length. He succeeded. You practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 2,330,000,000 years. With the great accomplishment of the infinitive creation Dharma, you forcefully struck at the divine thought true immortal realm, began facing the tribulation, and you endured the 49 heavenly Tao mysterious void tribulations. Tribulation succeeded, and your cultivation level broke through to the first layer of divine thought true immortal realm. You practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 260,000,000 years. Your cultivation level rose to the second layer of divine thought true immortal realm. You practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 300,000,000 years. Your cultivation level was enhanced for million years to not break through a minor realm. Is divine thought true immortal that exaggerated? Feeling spiritual energy flowing into his body, Guwen hurriedly continued to invest lifespan. Third layer. Fourth layer. He must reach the 9th layer to feel at ease. Eventually, he spent another 54 million years of lifespan and finally reached the 9th layer of divine thought true immortal realm. The mighty spiritual energy surged into his body, its scale far surpassing that when breaking through the Tao void mysterious immortal realm. Not only that, he found himself also absorbing the universal laws pervading the cosmos. He immediately closed his eyes to meticulously experience it. As he closed his eyes, the universal laws became clear, those laws falling and then vanishing into thin air, finally appearing imperceptibly inside the lifespan barrier. Soon, Guwen noticed a divine sense sweeping over from the silent destruction domain. It was the carefree primordial immortal. As time passed, the noise from the breakthrough grew louder, attracting more and more divine senses, with the lowest being at the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. After 30 minutes, Guwen sensed the divine sense of a divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. Fortunately, those guys didn't dare show themselves yet, only daring to hide and use divine sense to spy. About half an ancient hour passed. Guwen suddenly sensed something, subconsciously opened his eyes, and then his eyes widened. He saw a pair of eyes appearing in the cosmic darkness, ordinary human race eyes, just like immortals, except the gaze was very detached. These eyes were large, with the stars and continents of the universe completely tiny like dust before them. Guwen felt as though he was being watched by the other, which made him feel uneasy. Could the lifespan barrier have been seen through? After a while, the pupils of those eyes finally shifted away. Guwen breathed a sigh of relief, daring to play such a dirty trick? Thinking I would be scared to jump out and beg for mercy? Unbearable. Just then, he finally succeeded in his breakthrough, and a stream of memories began flowing into his mind, all about divine thought true immortal. Divine thought true immortal. Divine sense transformed into divine thought, with immensely powerful thoughts that could kill enemies or cast spells through thought alone. True immortal, then, is a true immortal. His flesh and spirit underwent another transformation, and once completed, he would be an immortal conforming to the heavenly creation, not one just enhanced through cultivation. Guwen's consciousness immersed in the legacy memories, he saw many images. He could peer into the past lives of any beings that had a karmic connection with him, a very peculiar feeling. However, he couldn't see Ji Xiaoyu's past life. He could only start from where Ji Xiaoyu was born in this life. The most surprising thing for him was that he could even peek into the lives of beings with karmic ties established with Chu Lu and Xiao Shengtian. If so, doesn't this prove that reincarnation evolution could really turn into reality? This led Guwen into endless conjecture. He was immersed in the karmic images, unable to extricate himself, not feeling the slightest discomfort but rather a kind of indescribable ease. Peering into karma, his mind was filled with countless images, yet it felt as exhilarating as Qi absorption cultivation, making him even more invigorated. By the time Guwen successfully broke through to the divine thought true immortal realm, he was still in those images. Cultivation continued to break through. From the first layer to the second layer. From the second layer to the third layer. Gradually, powerful beings began passing by this area, sweeping over the meteorite where he was located. Chapter 305. absolute order after Guwen reached the 9th layer of the divine thought true immortal realm. The spiritual energy and rules within the universe that had been violently disturbed returned to tranquility. Looking around, powerful figures were darting in all directions, while the pair of eyes that had been spying on the universe had already disappeared. Guwen slowly opened his eyes, his gaze indifferent. Having seen so many lives, his Daoist heart had been elevated, and in the unknown reaches, he had even touched upon a Dao that belonged to himself. The Dao is long and profound, necessitating accumulation over lengthy eons. Currently, Guwen possessed only cultivation level. Wishing to strengthen his Dao, he needed to traverse real time in reality. Of course, this did not mean Guwen was weaker compared to others at the same realm. The Dao was merely the direction for his future cultivation. 9 heavens of immortal path, divine thought true immortal was already the 8th heaven. Qi cultivation, foundation establishment, core formation, nascent soul, divinity transformation, void crossing unification, mystic heart, Mahayana, nirvana, loose immortal, wandering immortal, heaven and earth flying immortal, carefree primordial immortal, divine immortal of wondrous dharma, Tao void mysterious immortal, divine thought true immortal. Unknowingly, Guwen had transcended so many major realms. He was only 220 years old now. His future achievements were limitless. What realm lies above the 9 heavens? Guwen fell into endless reverie, uncaring about the figures moving in various directions. Let alone other divine thought true immortals, currently no Tao void mysterious immortal had appeared, likely hidden in the shadows. Considering the mysterious giant eye he had encountered before, he now recalled and still could not see through the opponent's cultivation level. Guwen looked at the consumption of the lifespan barrier and frowned. This breakthrough alone had consumed over 50 million years of lifespan. Now he had only 340 million years left. This breakthrough exhausting nearly 300 million years made it hard to imagine how many years the next breakthrough would require. Nevertheless, the cultivation of the 9th layer of divine thought true immortal realm was enough for him to protect himself. Guwen stood up, thinking of the scene inside the 3rd Medicine Valley Pavilion. Just as the thought arose, he returned indoors. This was the prowess of a divine thought true immortal. Thinking of a place, moving at will, he had already achieved the ability to be omnipresent to an initial extent. The whole heaven and earth appeared different to Guwen. He saw more rules, and the universe became clearer. He once again spied on the great heavenly spirit land, his divine sense far surpassing his previous divine perception, allowing him to penetrate the formations and restrictions of those great powers without being noticed. This great heaven and earth indeed harbored divine immortals of wondrous dharma. Though few in number, all were in seclusion, detached from worldly affairs. Guwen's gaze turned to the immortal spirit dynasty, which was located on a continent much larger than the one beneath his feet, with newborns starting at the nirvana realm. There, too, were divine immortals of wondrous dharma, even Tao void mysterious immortals as well as places too profound to probe. In his eyes, the standard for being unprovable was silence. His divine thought could forcefully intrude, but it would surely disturb the beings inside. This immortal spirit dynasty is strong. If it weren't for the Holy Court, it would not be difficult for this dynasty to unify the great heavenly spirit land. However, they seemed not to desire hegemony but were isolated from the world. Guwen saw no immortals coming in and out. He then turned his divine thoughts towards the Holy Court at the other end of heaven and earth. The baseline of the Holy Court was not as high as that of the immortal spirit dynasty, but the number of beings in the Holy Court was extremely large, incomparable to the immortal spirit dynasty, and the number of beings at the same realm was also greater than that of the immortal spirit dynasty. If the immortal spirit dynasty was taking an elite route, the Holy Court was developing in all aspects, and it held absolute control over the great heavenly spirit land. There were also places in the Holy Court that Guwen would not offend lightly, but after roughly spying around, Guwen felt that the Holy Court was still stronger than the immortal spirit dynasty. During his observation, Guwen saw the carefree primordial immortals moving in and out of the great heavenly spirit land in ways that beings could not perceive. he secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, after reaching the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, he had not acted recklessly, otherwise, when the carefree primordial immortal arrived in front of him, he would not even have been aware. After reaching the divine thought true immortal realm, Guwen was better able to sense the foundation of the great heavenly spirit land, and of course, he also had his own confidence, not so fearful of the holy court. Guwen vaguely saw the chi fortune of the holy court forming an invisible passage, leading deep into the universe, entering the annihilation zone. His gaze involuntarily turned towards the annihilation zone. The universe was vast and boundless, and the annihilation zone was not just in one direction but surrounded the cosmic region where the great heavenly spirit land was located, although the great heavenly spirit land was closer to one side. Thus, the beings of the great heavenly spirit land who flew out mistook that the silent destruction domain was only in one direction. Even for a heaven and earth flying immortal, flying to the annihilation zone from another direction would take many years, enough to see how vast the universe is. Guwen retracted his divine thoughts, filled with emotion. This world was different from what he had anticipated. Due to the influence of past life culture, he felt that if there was the immortal path, there would be order, with immortals governing all things under heaven and reincarnation constraining yin-yang. Yet, in reality, there was none. There were realms of immortal path but no immortals governing the heavenly Tao. There were reincarnation and yin-yang, yet no order like that of the underworld. Now, having observed the universe, Guwen had only one feeling. It was chaos. There was no absolute order. Guwen thought that there might be an even vaster world on the other end of the universe, with the silent destruction domain impeding the steps of the beings of the great heavenly spirit land, especially since he had learned through reincarnation evolution about the existence of other great lands. Speaking of the Dark Great Land alone, he felt that the Dark Great Land was stronger and larger than the Great Heavenly Spirit Land. This was normal. Baizia had mentioned that the current Great Heavenly Spirit Land was just a fragment. How vast the true Great Heavenly Spirit Land was hard to imagine. Guwen couldn't help but think of his juniors, his disciples. His pride faded along. Though a divine thought true immortal was indeed powerful, he had not yet reached a stage where he could command reincarnation, at least he could not make those around him immortal. He was planning to visit Yi Lan after some time to see if he could help extend her ultimate lifespan. Guwen raised his hand, tapping the desktop with a finger. This action was transmitting mana. He was enhancing the mana within the heaven-cutting axe while also strengthening the words, righteous path, on the heavenly repair platform. Since the prestige of Sword Venerable Fudao had already been established, he would just have to maintain it. At the end of summer, the weather was gradually cooling. In the woods, Guwen was guiding Yang Jian in his cultivation. Yang Jian wielded a trident and blade, his attacks swift and powerful, yet unable to harm Guwen, who with just 2 fingers could block all his attacks. This trident and blade were forged by order of Li Xiandao and had already been given to Yang Jian, but typically, inside Medicine Valley, Yang Jian would not bring out this divine weapon. The making of this divine weapon was similar to that of the heaven-cutting axe, weighing 1,000,000 jin, and it contained special restrictions inside that enhanced its strike force. Yang Jian grew more and more astonished in battle. He had gone all out, not to threaten his master, but under his master's suppression, even the force he swung could not damage the woods. At first glance, he seemed like a martial artist who was just faster and more forceful in his movements. Blood Prison Great Saint lay on the side watching. He was not surprised, feeling that it should be so. What he cared about was Yang Jian's state. This young man's aura was getting stronger, and he could not imagine what posture Yang Jian would have once he reached the Mahayana realm. Yang Jian leaped up, slashing down furiously. Guwen raised his right hand, pinning the blade between his fingers, preventing it from pressing downward, which made Yang Jian tremble. "All right, let's stop for today." Guwen spoke, his tone calm, thereafter setting Yang Jian down. Yang Jian sheathed his blade and hurriedly bowed, his heart uneasy, unsure if he had satisfied his master. His actual cultivation had reached the 7th layer of divinity transformation realm. Other than his own efforts, he received many elixirs from Guwen. As for cultivation speed, it quite satisfied Guan. Let's go back, a major figure is visiting today. Guan revealed a smile, softly speaking. Yang Jian couldn't help but be curious. What major figure? They walked towards the outside of the woods. Along the way, Blood Prison Great Saint started to evaluate Yang Jian's battle, imparting practical fighting experience, and Yang Jian, knowing his true cultivation, listened very attentively. An ancient hour later, Guan was playing chess with Stealing the Five Elements, watched by Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, Xianxia, and a crowd of cultivators. Stealing the Five Elements was frowning deeply, hesitating to make a move. Just then, a sonorous voice echoed through Supreme Sect, reverberating across the continent. Holy Minister decrees, Sword Venerable Fudeo's merit in saving beings is notable, and he may enter the Holy Court to receive the Chief Fortune Fruit position. Upon these words, everyone in Medicine Valley looked up, and Guan also pretended to look. After a brief silence, uproars broke out in Medicine Valley. The Holy Court? A reward for Sword Venerable Fudao? What's the matter? What power is this Holy Court? What is Chief Fortune Fruit position? It sounds quite powerful. Who is this holy minister, daring to recruit Sword Venerable Fudao? Too arrogant. Most disciples felt dissatisfied with the Holy Court after hearing this, feeling that the Holy Court did not respect Sword Venerable Fudao. At least from these words, it seemed the Holy Court considered itself stronger than Sword Venerable Fudao. Guan could not help but shake his head in amusement. Recruit me? But this plot point somewhat resembles Journey to the West. Luckily, it's not recruiting me to be Horse's Fortune. A disciple couldn't help but inquire about the background of the Holy Court from Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, who did not conceal anything and began to introduce the Holy Court. Hearing that the Holy Court was the overlord of the entire world, the disciples' dissatisfaction quickly dissipated. Immediately after, they started to worry about Sword Venerable Fudao leaving. Without Sword Venerable Fudao, what would they do in case of another crisis in the future? Meanwhile, Guan sensed that the heaven and earth flying immortal who had transmitted the message had already stepped onto the heavenly repair platform. He immediately stood up to go watch the excitement. Inside the outer gate city, the crowd was buzzing. People on the heavenly repair platform were discussing the Holy Court, many also believing that the Holy Court was undervaluing Sword Venerable Fudao. A man in white walked among the crowd, his pace not quick, his long sleeves fluttering, his appearance handsome, holding a folding fan in his hand. He wore a smile on his face, his heart scornful. A group of mortals dares to question the Holy Court? The man in white was not angry, he would not bother with mortals over this, and since this was Sword Venerable Fudeo's territory, it would not be good to offend Sword Venerable Fudao. A great power capable of eradicating the great cold demon sect was not someone he could provoke. After delivering the holy minister's message, he did not care whether Sword Venerable Fudao agreed or not. He now wanted to try out that heaven-cutting axe. Before coming to Supreme Sect, he had heard about the legend of the heaven-cutting axe while traveling in the Taizong dynasty. Chapter 306. I am Sword Venerable Fudao. The man in white walked for a while, slowly arriving in front of the heaven-cutting axe. Zuijian saw his extraordinary bearing and couldn't help but scrutinize him with curiosity. The man in white asked with a smile, I am Lu Xinyi, may I try my hand at the heaven-cutting axe? The creatures of this continent are too weak. Naturally, it would be impossible for them to receive the inheritance of Sword Venerable Fudao. If he could achieve that, it would also be a fortuitous opportunity for him. Leaving aside his identity, for him as a heaven and earth flying immortal, great cold demon sect is certainly an immovable behemoth that he could easily sweep away. The man in white speculated that Sword Venerable Fudao might possess abilities comparable to a holy king. Go ahead, but you can only pull once per day, said Zuijian, neither haughty nor humble. Over the years, he had seen too many great cultivators, and the pride in his heart had also been growing. In his eyes, the honor of Sword Venerable Fudao was even higher than the prosperity of the Supreme Sect. The man in white nodded and turned his gaze to the heaven-cutting axe. At the same time, Guan stood among the crowd, watching the man in white from afar and sending out a life-span detection. Lu Xianxia, 9 layers of heaven and earth flying immortal realm 67980/50000/890000, an extreme lifespan of 890,000 years. It was unknown what realm he could reach in his lifetime. Guwen suspected that a certain realm might once again bring a transformation of extreme lifespan, but since his breakthroughs did not increase his lifespan, he was not clear about which realm would bring about such a transformation. Furthermore, in his view, the previous great realms all had the feeling of being reborn from the ashes. Under Guwen's watchful gaze, Lu Xianxia grasped the handle of the heaven-cutting axe and his expression changed slightly. The gaze of more and more onlookers fell upon them. Anyone looking at Lu Xianxia would think that he came from an extraordinary background. Lu Xianxia began to exert force, and for a moment, the heavenly repair platform trembled slightly, but the heaven-cutting axe did not budge an inch. Zui Yijian's look changed when he saw Lu Xianxia shake the heavenly repair platform. It indicated that Lu Xianxia's cultivation level was extremely profound. It was too normal to not be able to lift the heaven-cutting axe. After all, Sword Venerable Fudao was unmatched in the world. At least, in Zui Yijian's heart, Sword Venerable Fudao was invincible. Wait a minute. This guy's voice is very similar to the one who shouted just now. It's not just similar, it's the exact same voice, just quieter, and the oppressive feeling is also restrained. Having realized this, Zui Yijian's gaze towards Lu Xianxia was filled with hostility. How dare this scoundrel try to poach the Sword Venerable? Outrageous! The commotion caused by Lu Xianxia attracted the attention of everyone on the heavenly repair platform, but he didn't pull for too long. After a few breaths, he released his hand. He let out a long sigh, stepped back, and said with a smile, "Sword Venerable Fudao is indeed as reputed, I am impressed." After that, he raised his hand in salute to the heaven-cutting axe, then turned and left. The cultivators along the way made way for him, afraid of offending him. Just from the commotion earlier, they felt they were not in a position to provoke him. Guwen stood among the crowd and also gazed at Lu Xianxia. Soon, Lu Xianxia disappeared from the platform, prompting discussion among the cultivators there. Guwen then headed down the platform. Since he was here, he might as well take a stroll. Otherwise, stealing the 5 elements and 9-finger divine lord would suspect why he specifically came to watch Lu Xianxia. Of course, the most important reason was that Guwen did not want to play go with stealing the 5 elements. These guys were playing slower and slower games. Guwen certainly understood their malicious intentions. Indeed, at this moment, stealing the 5 elements was still claiming the last game was a draw. Although the others didn't believe it, stealing the 5 elements was dead set on it, and no one else wanted to pursue the matter further, as the cultivation levels were quite deterring. Guwen paid a visit to the elixir hall, where almost everyone recognized him, except for the disciples who had just started this year. His income from Medicine Valley was one of the highest in the entire Supreme Sect, not to mention he was also a core formation realm cultivator. Even having reached the divine thought true immortal realm, Guwen still liked to chat with others. As for the invitation from the Holy Court, he didn't want to pay it any mind. Going to the Holy Court was likely to cause trouble, and he certainly didn't want any of that. What if, in the process, he ended up making enemies with the Holy Court? Although Guwen had wiped out the Ephemera sect, the 7-star spirit realm, and the Great Cold Demon sect, he was inherently kind-hearted and peace-loving. Well, if it's possible to avoid making enemies, then it's better not to. Not until dusk did Guwen return to his valley, and by then, stealing the 5 elements had long since disappeared. In the days that followed, Guwen noticed that Lu Xianxia had no intention of leaving the Supreme Sect. Guwen couldn't help praying, hoping the man wouldn't enter his Medicine Valley. The 3rd Medicine Valley had already hidden too many monsters and devils. It couldn't house any more. Summer passed, and autumn arrived. In the 3rd Medicine Valley, under an old tree, Guwen held the 7 stars mirror, using it like a fan, relaxing blissfully. Sitting opposite him, Lu Xianxia's complexion was ugly, his hand holding the ghost stones unable to make a move for a long time. Stealing the 5 elements and 9-finger divine lord sat aside, both revealing sincere smiles. A being in the 9 layers of heaven and earth flying immortal realm and still less than 70,000 years old was definitely a top-notch genius of the current era. Even stealing the 5 elements, who was also in the 9 layers of heaven and earth flying immortal realm, felt a dangerous aura from Lu Xinyi. After learning to play Go, Lu Xinyi was able to beat stealing the 5 elements on the same day. After losing the position of the second-best Go player in the world, stealing the 5 elements had always been displeased with Lu Xinyi. Today, he finally got to see Lu Xinyi get put in his place. Suddenly, Lu Xinyi raised his eyes to look at Guan and asked in a deep voice, "Impossible. Who exactly are you?" While Go is indeed exquisite, he felt that the reason the other party could win was because they anticipated his next move. This suggests what? That the opponent's deductive abilities were stronger than his own. His talent and comprehension might not be considered top-notch in the Holy Court, but he still believed he was a genius. He refused to believe that Guan's comprehension exceeded his own. There's only one possibility. This person is hiding their true cultivation level. After hearing this, Guan said with a proud smile, "I'll tell you, I am Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Do you believe that? Kid, you can't even recognize the immortal path supreme treasures in my hand and on my head, yet you aim to see through my cultivation level?" On hearing Guan's words, Lu Xinyi suddenly stood up and quickly bowed with clasped hands towards Guan. Stealing the 5 elements, 9-finger divine lord, and those around them were taken aback for a moment, then burst into laughter. Lu Xinyi looked up, confused. What was so funny about that? Weren't these people afraid of offending Sword Venerable Fu Dao? 9-finger divine lord could not help but laugh and say, "Young brother, you can inquire around if you wish. This lad is only in his 200s, how could he possibly be Sword Venerable Fu Dao?" Sword Venerable Fu Dao became famous over 100 years ago. On hearing this, Lu Xinyi looked at Guan in disbelief. Now he naturally didn't believe that Guan was Sword Venerable Fu Dao. What can be accomplished in 200 years? With talent like his, he could at most cultivate to the mystic heart realm. What is a realm before nirvana worth? No different from ants. Even if they said Sword Venerable Fu Dao was 200 years old, he wouldn't believe it. Sword Venerable Fu Dao must definitely be an existence that transcends the carefree primordial immortal. "You?" Lu Xinyi stared at Guan, quite angry. Guan stood up and said, "Someone is looking for me, you guys continue playing." Having said that, he slipped away. Lu Xinyi watched his retreating figure, unable to let go for a long time. Luckily, this guy didn't harbor enmity toward Guan, otherwise, he would have been extinguished this evening. Stealing the 5 elements immediately took the seat that Guan had vacated and said, "Let's continue. I think I have figured out your game." Lu Xinyi took a deep breath and could only sit down. He knew that Guan, being the Valley Master, couldn't escape, and he refused to believe that he couldn't beat a mere mortal in a game. Guan was not using an excuse, someone was indeed looking for him. He waited at the base of his own attic. After a while, a figure flew into the valley. It was Xianxia. "Big brother, long time no see." Guan exclaimed with joy. Xianxia was as spirited as ever. He patted Guan on the shoulder and observed him closely, praising, "You learned to dress up, you have a bit of my aura. But your cultivation hasn't increased, you're disgracing me." Lu Xinyi, who was playing Go downstairs, heard this and immediately dismissed his doubts. Someone who could greet a junior cultivator of the Mahayana realm as a brother, could that be some profound master? It seems this lad's invention of Go really is based on unique insights. Guan took Xianxia upstairs to catch up. Once inside, Xianxia began to recount his experiences over the years. He too had dealt with divine exotic resentful ghosts and had a wealth of experiences. Guan listened intently, sometimes shocked, which pleased Xianxia. He liked chatting with this younger brother, so invigorating. Xianxia mentioned Liya and Hao, especially Hao, whose tone was filled with envy. He truly understood what an unmatched genius was. Compared to Hao, his own talent seemed mediocre. And he had also learned that Hao's master was Sword Venerable Fu Dao. What? His master is... No wonder, no wonder. Guwen marveled. The attic was protected by Xian Tianyi's restrictions, so they didn't worry about the disciples overhearing. As for the likes of stealing the 5 elements, even if they did hear, what of it? If they dared to plot against an Hao, Guwen wouldn't consider their friendship overgo. After Great Cold Demon Sect withdrew, the sea became chaotic since quite a number of forces had escaped previously, freeing up a lot of maritime and land resources, and the Star Sea congregations are also vying with others over them, Xian Tianyi reflected. Although many years had passed, bringing up that event still excited him. Sword Venerable Fudao truly gave the Supreme Sect glory. While Xian Tianyi's heart lay with the Supreme Sect, he belonged to the Star Sea congregations. The two thus chatted passionately. Meanwhile, after beating stealing the 5 elements, Lu Xinyi stood up and left, ignoring stealing the 5 elements' requests for another match. He wandered around the valley, and his attention was captured by Xianxia. The Bitter Sea Buddha sect, huh? Lu Xinyi seemed to have an idea, but he quickly shifted his gaze, with no intention of approaching Xianxia. He observed everyone in the valley. This medicine valley was too peculiar. The inhabitants were either terrifyingly weak or concealed immortals, with an enormous disparity. Suddenly, his gaze was again drawn to one person, and this time, his eyes latched on. Following his line of sight, it was Yang Jian who was weeding. Due to the vast gulf in their cultivation, Yang Jian, who had his back to Lu Xinyi, did not detect anything unusual. Until a voice came from behind him. "What is your name?" Yang Jian subconsciously stood up and turned around. He had seen Lu Xinyi from a distance before and knew that the other party had an important status and was not a simple cultivator. "My name is Yang Jian. May I know what matter brings you here, senior?" Yang Jian bowed with clasped hands, striking a balance between respect and not coming across as obsequious. Yang Jian. Lu Xinyi mused, recalling having heard this name before. It was mentioned by 2 Supreme Sect disciples in conversation, with one claiming that true Lord Erlang Yang Jian was more formidable than the great sage equaling heaven. The two even quarreled about it in the end. Chapter 307. Millennium Summit. Yang Jian knew from Lu Xianxia's expression that he had heard of Journey to the West, but hadn't read it. Plus his demeanor suggested he most likely came from overseas. He immediately took out a book from his pocket and handed it to Lu Xinyi. "This is my favorite book, the most extraordinary book ever, a gift for you, my elder." Upon hearing this, Lu Xinyi quickly reached out to accept it, even bowing gratefully, which made Yang Jian feel vigilant. What's going on? Did this fellow realize he was concealing his cultivation level? Seeing the change in Yang Jian's eyes, Lu Xinyi spoke. "Thanks, I'll go read this book now since I have nothing else to do." With that he turned and left. Yang Jian watched him walk away, thought for a moment, and continued weeding. It wasn't until the evening that Xian Tianyi finally left. Guwen looked at the book on the table, his face full of anticipation. The latest Green Hero travelogue. Xian Tianyi truly was a saint in his eyes. Despite the chaos in recent years, that youngster still managed to write a book. You should know the Green Hero travelogue is adapted from real experiences and focuses on romantic plots, implying that these years Xian Tianyi had incurred more romantic debts. Guwen took a deep breath and then picked up the Green Hero travelogue with both hands. The moon outside the window was full, and the valley was filled with the continuous sound of insects, making the atmosphere more enjoyable for reading. It wasn't just him reading in the valley. Lu Xinyi was also in his guest room reading. Lu Xinyi held Journey to the West in one hand, his brow furrowed, and his other hand was calculating something. 7 days later, Guwen rode the blood prison Great Saint to Tianya Valley to pick medicinal herbs. Only Luo Hun, Lv Xian, and 3 monkey demons were there. Yi Luyun, Ji Rualai, and Li Lingtian hadn't returned. Above the clouds, Lu Xinyi looked down at Tianya Valley, his brow tightly knit. Listening to the exchange between Guwen and Luo Hun, he finally let down his guard. This youngster providing the Supreme Sect with grass and serving the dynasty as a laborer, with hardly a grand background, was exactly why he was so humble. Lu Xinyi turned and left, planning to visit the Supreme Sect. He had heard that investiture of the gods could be linked with Journey to the West, and he wanted to see what investiture of the gods was about. As Guwen continued weeding, the corner of his mouth curled upward. Beside him, Luo Hun continued asking, "What have you considered?" "Let's not, I really don't want to leave the Supreme Sect. Thank the Emperor and the Crown Prince for their kindness on my behalf, but I won't be going to the Imperial City," Guwen replied. Luo Hun smiled and said, "The Crown Prince always talks about defeating Yang Jian. He's been cultivating hard these years. He even received pointers from a great cultivator from the ocean. You better prepare Yang Jian." Guwen nodded. "Sure, old Luo, you've aged." "Aged? Why would you say that?" "You've become more and more long-winded. You used to talk less when you borrowed the Green Hero Travelogue." "You dare mention that without a new volume of Green Hero Travelogue, the supreme secret records you asked me to find still haven't appeared. Read more of the Journey to the West and cultivate your mind." Guwen kept weeding while bantering with Luo Hun. Days continued to pass. Autumn left and winter arrived. Snow began to fly. One day, while reading in the 8 scenic caves, Guwen suddenly sensed something and immediately took out a green jade, the mortal jade of the mortal world peak, a symbol of a peak master and also a magic artifact. He sent his divine thought into it and soon learned that the Millennium Peak meeting was about to start. He thought for a moment, stood up, and disappeared from the spot. The mortal jade had a directional guide inside, but Guwen didn't need it. He had already found the location of Mortal World Peak. Mortal World Peak was very distant from the Supreme Sect, situated over an ocean covered in thick fog. There were no islands or continents, only towering peaks rising straight from the ocean floor into the clouds. Guwen appeared at the edge of Mortal World Peak and then proceeded forward through the clouds. It wasn't long before he saw the figures of cultivators, more and more of them all heading in the same direction. Guwen didn't speed up, flying at a leisurely pace, enjoying the scenery along the way. He was considering, now as a peak master, whether to plant medicinal herbs on his own peak. Arriving at Mortal World Peak, he couldn't rely entirely on picking his own herbs, as that would be too suspicious. After all, here he was a heaven and earth flying immortal. "Daoist friend, please wait." A voice came from behind, and Guwen stopped and turned to look. He saw 2 cultivators approaching on swords, a man and a woman, both at the Nirvana realm. Guwen performed a lifespan detection. The man was named Su Ruahai and the woman Su Shi. Their ultimate lifespans were not outstanding, but also not mediocre. The 2 approached Guwen, and Su Ruahai took the initiative to raise his hand in greeting. "I am Su Ruahai. This is my sister, Su Shi. May I ask for your honored name, Daoist friend?" Guwen returned the greeting. "I am Meng Lang. May I know what brings the 2 of you here?" Su Ruahai smiled. "Daoist friend, are you also here to pay respects at Mortal World Peak? We are siblings too, why don't we keep each other company?" Although he couldn't see through Guwen's cultivation level, Guwen didn't appear dangerous to him and he observed Guwen flying leisurely, looking around as if it were his first visit. Su Shi, examining Guwen, quickly averted her gaze when Guwen looked at her, her earlobes turning slightly red. Interesting, embarrassed after living over 8,000 years? Guwen thought to himself and then nodded. Su Ruahai became even more enthusiastic, and the 3 chatted as they flew. Guwen asked them about their understanding of Mortal World Peak, reassuring Su Ruahai that it was indeed Guwen's first visit. She didn't talk much, mostly Su Ruahai spoke, with her occasionally interjecting. Through them, Guwen gained a clearer understanding of Mortal World Peak. At the same time, he thought about the siblings he had met towards the end of Xianxia's life, recalling their adventures, which made him feel somewhat regretful and endearing Su Ruahai and Su Shi to him. An hour later, the 3 passed through dense fog, and their eyes were drawn to a gigantic peak ahead, an incredibly majestic peak even larger than any they had encountered along the way. Its diameter at the base was at least 1,000 miles, shooting straight into the sky, its top invisible. The surface of this mountain was densely wooded, full of vitality, and cultivators from all directions were flying toward this mountain. Upon arriving here, the surroundings became noisy, with roars of demon pets and mounts in the distance. Su Ruhai looked up, feeling moved, truly worthy of Mortal World Peak, one of the oldest schools in the world. I've wanted to join Mortal World Peak since I was young. I wonder if it'll pass smoothly. Guan laughed. With your cultivation level, you should be fine, no need to worry. Su Ruhai laughed bitterly. Brother Meng, you don't understand the requirements of Mortal World Peak for aptitude. Ha ha, Daoist friend Meng, you finally arrived. A hearty laugh interrupted Su Ruhai. Guan knew without looking up that it was Bai Zia who had come. He had intentionally leaked a hint of heaven and earth flying immortal aura earlier. Su Ruhai and Su she might not have noticed, but Bai Zia, who had been waiting for him, picked it up quickly. Bai Zia descended from the sky, grabbing Guan's hand, eager to move on. If you hadn't come, your position as peak master would have been taken. Bai Zia huffed. Guan quickly said, I'd like to bring them along. Bai Zia glanced at Su Ruhai and Su Shi, nodding slightly. Su Ruhai and Su Shi were stunned. Peak master's position? Had they heard right? Chapter 308. Unable to contact Guan saw that Su Ruhai and his sibling were still in a daze, so he immediately rolled up his sleeves, took them into his palm, and followed Bai Zia to fly upwards. That scene caused Bai Zia to raise an eyebrow and laugh. Daoist friend Meng, you have impressive divine skills. In the eyes of Su Ruhai and his sibling, it was not that they had become smaller, but Guan and Su Ruhai had become gigantic, a visual impact so shocking that it left the siblings speechless and wide-eyed. Listening to Guan and Bai Zia chatting and laughing, Su Shi came back to her senses and looked at Su Ruhai, asking carefully, Brother, just now the senior mentioned Meng Dao, is he a peak master? She naturally knew what being a peak master meant. In Mortal World Peak, a peak master wielded immense power and symbolized the status of a strong individual, someone of legendary status. Turbulent waves rose in Su Ruhai's heart as he tried to maintain his composure, slightly nodding his head without making a sound. He carefully recalled the previous interactions and realized he hadn't offended the other party, who had even comforted him about successfully entering Mortal World Peak. A light shone in Su Ruhai's eyes, his heart beginning to race with excitement, his hands clenched into fists inside his sleeves. At the same time, Bai Zia began to explain the situation of the Millennium Summit. Although it was called the Millennium Summit, it was not actually fixed at an interval of 10,000 years. It had been 20,000 years since the last summit, and Bai Zia, having returned rarely, discussed holding it with the other peak masters. The opening of the Millennium Summit would not only recruit new disciples but also invite other friendly forces. Before the opening of the Millennium Summit, Bai Zia would take Guan to choose an unclaimed divine peak. Mortal World Peak had many peaks, divided by rank from low to high: Sea Peak, Immortal Peak, Divine Peak, and Main Peak, the latter being the highest level with only one. There were 25 divine peaks, and the hard standard for a master of a divine peak was the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. Guan was curious, how could there be a shortage of divine peak masters? Bai Zia replied that many heaven and earth flying immortals wanted to adventure beyond the outer heaven, so they would make room if they wanted to leave. After hearing this, Guan didn't react too strongly, making Bai Zia sigh in relief. It looked like he had successfully bluffed Guan. He had made outer heaven seem so dangerous because he wanted Guan to stay in the great heavenly spirit land. Besides, someone like Guan, who had no powerful backing and could cultivate to the heaven and earth flying immortal realm in solitude, was undoubtedly an unimaginable talent. Even without going to outer heaven, he could still advance. The two kept flying upwards until the azure sky vanished, replaced by the dazzling starry sky. Su Ruhai and Su Shi, standing in the palm of Guan's hand, looked up, immersed in the vastness of the universe. Guan followed Bai Zia into a grand hall, placing Su Ruhai and Su Shi on the ground, asking them to follow behind him. The grand hall was spacious, with giant, majestic statues lined up on both sides, and the ceiling was engraved with various grand scenes. Su Ruhai and Su Shi proceeded cautiously, not daring to make a sound, staying close behind Guan moving forward, Guwen saw 25 bluish-purple crystal columns, with the power of rules surging within, containing countless restrictions. It seemed that Mortal World Peak might be hiding a divine immortal of wondrous dharma. Even a carefree primordial immortal would find it difficult to construct such crystal columns. Zia stopped walking and pointed to 2 adjacent crystal columns. These 2 divine peaks are open for choice, known as Chengtian Peak and Dingtian Peak. He began to introduce Chengtian Peak and Dingtian Peak. Chengtian Peak had over 1 million disciples, and its height was moderate since it had a long history, so the disciples' cultivation levels were generally strong. The height of Dingtian Peak was second among the divine peaks. Because it had experienced internal strife, there was a gap in the disciples' cultivation, with most of them below the level of loose immortals, and resources were also scarce, with many areas left idle. Currently, the number of disciples on Dingtian Peak was just over 200,000. Guwen immediately spoke up, "Then Dingnan Peak it shall be. I will see to its improvement and contribute to Mortal World Peak." Upon hearing this, Zia looked at Guwen with newfound respect. Afterward, Zia asked Guwen to bring out the mortal jade and place it on the crystal column. Having done all this, they proceeded to other palaces for a tedious process to unlock Guwen's rights on Dingtian Peak. Su Ruhai and Su Shi also registered in the process, becoming disciples of Dingtian Peak. An hour later, Zia took Guwen and the siblings to Dingtian Peak, then left. He didn't support Guwen's position. Jokingly, did a heaven and earth flying immortal even need someone to stand up for them? Who would dare to stir up trouble? That would be courting death. In Mortal World Peak, disciples were not allowed to defile the Peak Master. Su Ruhai and Su Shi looked with excitement at the majestic Dingtian Peak. Guwen looked at them and asked with a smile, "From now on, how should you address me?" Su Ruhai quickly bowed and offered his respects. "This disciple, Su Ruhai, greets Master." Su Shi recovered her senses and followed suit, greeting him as Master. Guwen smiled, then revealed the aura of the heaven and earth flying immortal, enveloping Dingtian Peak. Only at this moment did Su Ruhai and his sibling truly feel the strength of Guwen. The 3 flew to the summit. Shortly after, 9 wandering immortals came to greet them. Guwen, without a second word, displayed his mortal jade. The 9 wandering immortals showed delight and paid their respects, referring to Guwen as Master respectfully. Guwen threw a lifespan detection at them. Their lifespans were healthy, able to work for him for many years. The eldest disciple of Dingtian Peak was named Zhu Xinglan, possessing the 9th layer of the wandering immortal realm cultivation, seemingly only a step away from the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, but it was an insurmountable gap for most wandering immortals. Guwen dismissed the other disciples and had Zhu Xinglan accompany him alone, while he already had someone arrange the Su siblings. Zhu Xinglan was refined in appearance, looking to be in his 40s, dressed in a green robe, with a black and white beard, his demeanor calm and imposing as he stroked his beard. Guwen asked him to give him a tour around Dingtian Peak. Before long, 2 hours had passed. After settling into his new residence, Guwen prepared to leave. Before departing, he gave Zhu Xinglan a large amount of crystal stones to buy medicinal herbs to cultivate on Dingtian Peak, making Zhu Xinglan extremely excited, feeling the arrival of a magnificent peak master. Returning to 3rd Medicine Valley, Guwen transformed from the high and mighty peak master of Mortal World Peak to an ordinary valley master of Supreme Sect. In the evening, Guwen found stealing the 5 elements and 9-finger divine lord, who were still playing chess, truly a waste of time. Guwen curiously asked, "Where did Xianxia go?" 9-finger divine lord casually responded, "I heard he went to the Millennium Summit of Mortal World Peak. He just left not long ago." Mortal World Peak? Inchim, an ancient Qi fortune sect. Don't bother poking your nose into it. You won't encounter it in this lifetime. It's a sect much more powerful than the Great Cold Demon sect. 9-finger divine lord casually replied, prompting Guwen to stare at him, then he turned and walked away. Stealing the 5 elements then said with a smile, "That's not necessarily true. If he could invent this game, I think he might encounter great opportunities in the future." Who knows? You are so powerful, yet I haven't seen you help him." Nine-fingered Divine Lord replied, and although he had grown familiar with Guan, he had no intention of changing Guan's destiny. With Guan's talent, even if he was taken to a great sect, it might not be for the best. At least here, Guan could live effortlessly, live happily. Guan, hearing their conversation, thought to himself with a hint of amusement. "If I revealed my realm, you might have never even heard of it." Guan hummed and went to chat with Ji Xiaoyu. With some time left before the Millennium Summit, Guan was in no rush to head there. Days later, Guan came to Immortal Seeking Island and made his final deal with the island master. Henceforth, Immortal Seeking Island would belong to him. Due to the calamity brought by the Great Cold Demon Sect, the forces behind the island master had already withdrawn, not willing to look back, and could only sell it off to gain as much as possible. Before leaving, the island master said to Guan, "You had better have your backing force send a wandering immortal here, otherwise, you won't be able to keep order." Guan nodded with a smile. After the island master and his people had left, Guan turned to Hu Shaojian and said with a smile, "From now on, Immortal Seeking Island is mine, and I won't treat you unfairly." Hu Shaojian immediately knelt down, banging his head on the ground in excitement. Afterward, Guan summoned the elders of Sea Protection Mansion, briefly instructed them, and upon hearing that Guan would arrange for a wandering immortal to come later, all the elders' expressions became respectful, no longer daring to underestimate him. Guan wasn't just boasting. There were wandering immortals on Dingtian Peak, and he could easily arrange for one. After all, he was using the identity of Meng Lang on Immortal Seeking Island. Time flew swiftly by. Until the Spring Festival had passed, the Millennium Summit of Mortal World Peak was finally about to begin. Above the sea of clouds, Holy Mother of Western Spirit stood on a lotus throne, moving swiftly, with Lu Lingjun standing beside her, and a small snake lying on her shoulder, the White Spirit Demon Emperor who had ascended with her. Lu Lingjun's beautiful eyes widened as she saw the peaks through the clouds, feeling as though she was witnessing the immortal realm of mortals. The White Spirit Demon Emperor flicked its tongue curiously and asked, "How does Mortal World Peak compare to the Great Cold Demon Sect in terms of strength?" Upon hearing this, Lu Lingjun couldn't help but look toward Holy Mother of Western Spirit, curiosity gleaming in her eyes. She could not forget the sight of the Great Cold Demon Sect surrounding the continent. At that time, it felt like the Great Cold Demon Sect was invincible. In terms of historical heritage, Mortal World Peak is stronger, and Mortal World Peak also has considerable power within the Holy Court. Even we, the Bitter Sea Buddha sect, cannot compare, Holy Mother of Western Spirit replied, her face calm. Lu Lingjun and the White Spirit Demon Emperor could feel the might of Mortal World Peak even more. Holy Mother of Western Spirit continued speaking of Mortal World Peak's past. While listening, Lu Lingjun gazed into the distance, her anticipation for the upcoming Millennium Summit growing. Passing through layers of clouds, they observed the peaks along the way, their eyes never resting. Gradually, more figures of cultivators appeared in their view, all invited monks or demons from great sects, each with extraordinary presence. Neither Lu Lingjun nor the White Spirit Demon Emperor had reached the Mahayana realm, yet the cultivators and demons they encountered along the way were much stronger than them, causing an instinctive feeling of nervousness and discomfort. But they were ascenders, certainly not cowards. Ambition grew within them. One day, they too would arrive invited, rather than relying on others. Lu Lingjun couldn't help but think of Guan, the young man who had written the Immortal God book. If he could see this spectacle, would certainly be inspired even more. Too bad, with Guan's talent and temperament, he probably would never reach such a place in his lifetime. Chapter 309. The Invincible Heavenly Demon Great Emperor at the Summit of Mortal World Peak. In a courtyard at the mountain's top, Guan gathered with a group of heaven and earth flying immortals. Everyone present was either a peak master or main peak elder of Mortal World Peak. The courtyard was simple and not very expansive, filled with various flowers and trees, and the faint scent of sandalwood lingered in the air. Guan was exchanging pleasantries with everyone. No matter how high one's realm might be, social interaction is inevitable. Guwen did not resist it. After all, he intended to stay at Mortal World Peak for the long term. This place was destined to become an important source of lifespan for him. Overall, the atmosphere was harmonious, with no apparent scheming or rivalry in sight. The master of the main peak, just as Guwen had guessed, was none other than a carefree primordial immortal, and not of a low realm at that. Eternal Daoist Lord, carefree primordial immortal level 6267907/78000/1500000, a maximum lifespan of 1,500,000 years. Exceeding Shinzin's 999,999 years suggested reaching the carefree primordial immortal realm heralded a transformation in the limit of one's lifespan. With just level 6 of carefree immortal achieving 780,000 years of lifespan, the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma must certainly surpass 1 million years, and the higher Dao void mysterious immortals would have lifespans of several million years, or even more. Guwen was unable to even estimate how long the divine thought true immortals had lived. They were ancient beings to him. Compared with them, Guwen was like an infant. After rotating through interactions with each person, Guwen became a listener. The Millennial Peak meeting would host a banquet to exchange insights with the higher echelons of various sects and also conduct peak combat competitions. The first aim was to promote healthy internal competition, and the second was to demonstrate Mortal World Peak's strength to the world. As for recruiting disciples, that was just a side matter. With Mortal World Peak's current foundations, they hardly cared about the number of new disciples. After a while, the high-level meeting of Mortal World Peak adjourned, and Guwen flew off alone toward Dingtian Peak. He spread his divine thought and already caught sight of Lu Lingjun and Shen Xinzi. Shen Xinzi was not a concern, for with his 9th layer wandering immortal realm cultivation, he was treated well wherever he went. However, Lu Lingjun, who was only at the mystic heart realm, couldn't enjoy the same treatment. Without the Holy Mother of Western Spirit accompanying her, Lu Lingjun had to stay inside her temporary residence. She was living atop a mountain peak with a broad view. Many cultivators and demons who passed by cast surprised glances at her, which made the color of her cheeks unpleasant. Guwen glanced at the situation briefly before taking his gaze back, not taking much interest in it. Upon returning to Dingtian Peak, Guwen wandered around leisurely as no disciples recognized him along the way. There were many winding mountain paths on Dingtian Peak. Along the way, he saw courtyards of disciples, some growing flowers and plants, some with empty yards, and others raising demon beasts and insects, providing an entertaining stroll for him. Dingtian Peak had several mountain cities, akin to the fortresses of the Supreme Sect, where nearly anything one wished for could be purchased, except that these cities weren't as crowded as those of the Supreme Sect. As Guwen passed by a mountain city, a voice reached him, its tone filled with surprise. "Master!" Guwen turned his head to see Su Shi approaching briskly. Upon seeing Guwen, her ears reddened and she shyly lowered her head, reminding Guwen of an Exen. But an Exen was not shy, she was gentle. Guwen smiled and asked, "Where's your brother? Why are you here alone?" Su Shi, still keeping her head down and holding her sleeves, softly answered, "He went to Debating Peak. He wants to see if he can meet any acquaintances or clansmen." Debating Peak was specially prepared for receiving Mortal World Peak's guests, and the current Millennial Peak meeting had brought the quiet Debating Peak to life. Guwen, seeing her in this state, smiled broader. He then took out a secret book and handed it to Su Shi, saying, "Meeting is destiny. Consider this spell book a welcome gift. You may pass it on to Su Ruahai as well." Su Shi looked up, instinctively stepping back and waved her hand, saying, "If not for Master, we might not have been able to join Mortal World Peak. How can we accept another spell book? We will train diligently and earn spell books with our efforts." Guwen gave her a stern look and said, "Then what kind of master am I? Take it." Su Shi had no choice but to accept. Seeing her at a loss, Guwen then chuckled and said, "If you feel bad, how about doing me a favor? Have you been busy lately?" Su Shi quickly shook her head, replying, not busy at all." Go to Debating Peak, to the dwelling of the Bitter Sea Buddha sect. Look for a person named Lu Lingjun. Keep her company wherever she wants to go these days. If she asks, just say it's arranged by your master. Do not reveal my name. If she has any requests that you can fulfill, help her out. Your master won't let you suffer for it, Guan instructed, then raised his hand to project the image of Lu Lingjun into Su Zai's mind. She hesitated for a moment before accepting the task. With a wave from Guan, she bowed respectfully and took her leave. Watching Su Shi leave, Guan smiled to himself. Arranging this was partly to help Lu Lingjun broaden her horizons, and also to train Su Shi a bit. This had been a spur-of-the-moment decision for him. Guan continued his descent down the mountain, enjoying the scenery along the way. In the courtyard, Lu Lingjun sat in front of a stone table, idly flipping through a book. Beside her, the white spirit demon emperor lay sprawled across the table. A figure descended from the sky, and Lu Lingjun instinctively looked up, then rose to her feet. Lu Lingjun? Su Shi asked. Lu Lingjun subconsciously nodded, feeling somewhat uneasy. Su Shi was wearing the Daoist robe of Mortal World Peak, her face beautiful, her posture dignified, and exuding an aura of immortality. In her presence, Lu Lingjun couldn't help but feel intimidated. The difference between them was like that between immortals and mortals. Although Su Shi was shy in front of Guan, she was at ease facing Lu Lingjun. Precisely because of this serenity, the aura of Nirvana realm manifested, overwhelming Lu Lingjun of the mystic realm with pressure. Lu Lingjun's mind raced, wondering if she had offended someone. My master sent me to you. Do you have any places you'd like to go? I can accompany you. If you have any needs, you can ask me, until the end of the Millennial Peak meeting, Su Shi continued. She was puzzled inwardly about why her master would take care of such a minor cultivator. She then thought, weren't she and her brothers similar to this girl in her master's eyes? Perhaps this girl had also met her master on the road and caught his eye. May I ask who is the master of Senior? Lu Lingjun asked cautiously. Su Shi responded, my master is the Peak Master of Dingtian Peak. The Peak Master of Dingtian Peak. As an ascender, Lu Lingjun couldn't keep her composure at this revelation, and the white spirit demon emperor's eyes widened as well. Having been told by the Holy Mother of Western Spirit that the Peak Masters of Mortal World Peak were extraordinary beings, especially those of divine peaks, of which Dingtian Peak was one, Lu Lingjun couldn't fathom how such an exalted being would know of her. For a moment, Lu Lingjun felt nervous and unsettled. At dusk, Guan returned to Third Medicine Valley. Ji Xiaoyu came to greet him, curiously asking, where have you been these past 2 days? Guan replied, a Daoist friend of mine is hosting a banquet, and I have to attend as a guest. Ji Xiaoyu nodded, then said, I had another dream while cultivating today. Shall we talk about it? I don't want to get involved with your great karma. Guan thought helplessly, but he immediately said aloud, of course, no problem. They both ascended to the upper floor. After Ji Xiaoyu set up restrictions, only then did she sit down at the desk, frowning slightly as she said, I dreamed that I was in a dimly lit space surrounded by stars, some of them immensely vast. I was surrounded by many demons and fighting outer heaven. Having never been to outer heaven, the mortal spirits of this world couldn't imagine what it looked like, so Ji Xiaoyu could only describe it as a dimly lit space. Listening attentively, Guan quickly determined that Ji Xiaoyu's dream involved heavenly demons. Had she been to the silent destruction domain in a past life? He wasn't surprised. He had known for a long time that Ji Xiaoyu was no ordinary person. What puzzled him was not only that Ji Xiaoyu's previous lifetimes had battled with the heavenly demon army, but she also mentioned a terrifying being. This being commanded the heavenly demons. He said that no matter how many times I reincarnate, he would be waiting for me to challenge him. Ji Xiaoyu took a deep breath and said, the memory of the fierce battles in her dreams causing her to grip the teacup in her hands tightly. After a moment of thought, Guan comforted her, don't worry, you won't be able to challenge him for many years, maybe not even in this lifetime. Anyway, I can't imagine how to slash a star so large with a single sword stroke. Although his words were a bit harsh, they indeed comforted Ji Xiaoyu. Just then, a voice came, "That is the heavenly demon emperor, who once single-handedly suppressed the great heavenly spirit land. The voice of stealing the 5 elements." As he spoke, he appeared out of nowhere inside the room. Ji Xiaoyu frowned but did not speak out. The identity of Reincarnation Path Emperor was revealed to them by stealing the 5 elements, so Guwen did not stop him from entering. Suppressed the great heavenly spirit land? How strong must that be? Guwen cautiously asked. With a grave expression, stealing the 5 elements replied, "Very strong, unimaginably so. Even the Reincarnation Path Emperor once mentioned to me that her destiny was to challenge the heavenly demon emperor, but she soon reincarnated, and her fate entered the cycle of reincarnation." Guwen pressed on, "You mean the heavenly demon emperor won't attack our realm actively?" "Correct. The establishment of the Holy Court has kept the heavenly demon's ravages at bay. As long as the Dao level of Shengtian remains intact, there's no way for the heavenly demon emperor to reach us. The being behind me has also been to the land of the heavenly demons and was cursed as a result. It's a place of utter horror, beyond my comprehension. However, seeing her growth rate in this life, it will be hard to encounter heavenly demons without 30,000 years, said stealing the 5 elements, casting a glance at Ji Xiaoyu. Guwen did not speak further, but adopted a shocked expression. It was entirely normal for a mortal to be shocked upon hearing of the existence of heavenly demons, or so stealing the 5 elements thought Guwen should seem. After hearing this, Ji Xiaoyu returned to calm. Stealing the 5 elements continued to describe the might of the heavenly demons. A good while later he left. The room fell silent. Guwen sighed and said, "He said that not even the sword Venerable Fudao could defeat the heavenly demon emperor. This is a good thing, at least you don't have to worry for now." Looking at him, Ji Xiaoyu's gaze was serene as she said, "I had hoped to lead a peaceful life and pass away peacefully, but after what he said, I suddenly don't want to die. I want to cultivate to the level where I can meet that heavenly demon emperor." Taken aback, Guwen replied, "Having a larger goal is certainly a good thing." Ji Xiaoyu rose from her seat and turned to leave. Just as she reached the door, she turned her head back and said, "Why don't you give up either? I've dreamed of many people. Some started from nothing and ended up shining brilliantly. If you could be by my side to fight the heavenly demon emperor, wouldn't that be wonderful?" With that, she turned her head and pushed the door to leave. Chapter 310 Why Don't You Give Your Place to Me, Heavenly Demon Great Emperor? Guwen looked at the moon outside the window, his lips curving into a smile. If Ji Xiaoyu really could achieve it, according to stealing the 5 elements, she would need to cultivate for 30,000 years. 30,000 years. I wouldn't even know how terrifying I would become by then. The mere heavenly demon Great Emperor, easily squashed. By then, I'll pretend to be weaker than Ji Xiaoyu, let her fight strenuously, and step in when she almost can't hold on. The thought is quite exhilarating. Guwen even laughed at the thought, choosing not to get up and close the door but instead pulling out a book to read. The Millennium Peak Conference had begun with cultivators of various ranks competing near the debating peak, making it a lively place. During these days, with Su Zai's company, Lu Lingjun explored Mortal World Peak, greatly broadening his horizons, and their relationship had also grown closer, though Lu Lingjun still addressed Su Shi as his senior. The competitions between peaks continued for half a month, with Gu Ennis Dingtian Peak ranking 3rd from last among the Divine Peaks, which he didn't feel too strongly about since the disciples of Dingtian Peak were used to it. That day, the grand banquet of the Millennium Peak Conference began, with tables set up all around the debating peak. Guwen then attended the banquet under the starlit sky, the banquet located above a sea of clouds equipped with a powerful formation, only accessible to those at least in the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. Shen Xinzi of the wandering immortal realm couldn't participate, which actually relieved Guwen. If Shen Xinzi had come, he wouldn't have attended. There were hundreds of heaven and earth flying immortals and over 10 carefree primordial immortals at the cloud banquet, with Guwen standing beside by Zia listening to him introduce the guests. The participating forces numbered over 20, including even cultivators from the Holy Court. The atmosphere was harmonious, and Guwen was enjoying the feast. The exquisite delicacies here were truly exceptional, with just one bite enough to save mortals decades of hard cultivation. With Baizia's help, Guwen got acquainted with quite a few heaven and earth flying immortals. An ancient hour later, a carefree primordial immortal suddenly walked to the middle of the cloud banquet, laughing as he spoke. Daoist Lord, I wish to join Mortal World Peak. May I ask if that's permissible? Upon these words, everyone turned to look at him. The peak master of Mortal World Peak's main peak, everlasting Daoist Lord, looked towards him and laughed. Mo Hen, although you've left the great cold demon sect for tens of thousands of years, can you really sever all ties given your sect's current crisis? Other carefree primordial immortals followed with light jabs at Mo Hen. Mentioning the great cold demon sect invariably brought up Sword Venerable Fudao, but Mo Hen wasn't upset. He looked at everlasting Daoist Lord and cheerfully said, I've long severed those ties. It's normal for that group of useless people to be annihilated. Don't provoke me, Sword Venerable Fudao isn't someone I can afford to antagonize. I advise you all to speak well and avoid substantial karmic retribution. Hearing this, other carefree primordial immortals stopped making fun of him. Even they did so, not to mention the heaven and earth flying immortals. Though all were present at the banquet, the division of hierarchy was clear, and heaven and earth flying immortals were definitely not the protagonists. Everlasting Daoist Lord pondered and said, the position of the peak master of Chengtian Peak is still vacant. Would you accept that? Mo Hen shook his head and said, I set my sights on Dinghan Peak. He then turned and looked towards Guwen in the crowd, smiling. Dinghan Peak's peak master, how about you cede your position to me? All eyes were now on Guwen. Before Guwen could speak, Baizia angrily said, What do you mean by this? Bullying the weak? Guwen looked at Baizia, not expecting him to be so aggressive. He's got quite the backing. Mo Hen wasn't upset and chuckled. There was internal strife on Dingtian Peak back then, and a good friend of mine died there. I'm just being nostalgic. Yet his tone obviously left no room for negotiation. Suddenly, the banquet fell silent. Baizia looked towards everlasting Daoist Lord. Carefree primordial immortals seemed amused by the situation, while the heaven and earth flying immortals looked at Guwen sympathetically. They all knew Guwen had just become the peak master of Dingtian Peak, and now, just days later, he was being asked to vacate his position, which must be hard to accept. Guwen remained silent, while everyone thought he was weighing his options. In reality, he was feeling sentimental. My ties with the great cold demon sect are truly cursed. Is this to continue the karma? To make me completely annihilate the great cold demon sect? Guwen felt no pressure, being the strongest person present with a cultivation level 2 major realms higher than anyone else. What was there to fear? He wanted to see the attitude of everlasting Daoist Lord. If everlasting Daoist Lord didn't defend him, then there was no reason to stay in Mortal World Peak. As for Mo Hen, a bad ending was inevitable. Everlasting Daoist Lord slowly said, That won't do, choose another one. His tone was unquestionable and very firm, giving the great cultivators of Mortal World Peak a sense of backbone. Regardless, Mo Hen was an outsider, and although the combat power of a carefree primordial immortal was important, it didn't give him the right to do whatever he pleased. If Meng Lang were kicked out today, tomorrow it could be any of them. Mo Hen shook his head. Don't be hasty, what if this young friend agrees? The term young friend was filled with disdain. His gaze turned to Guwen. Young friend, if you cede your position to me, I won't let you suffer losses. You can ask for anything. Guwen replied, Thanks for your kind offer, senior, but no need. I'm not the type who likes to change nests. Everyone's expression changed slightly, none expecting Guwen to defy Mo Hen, everlasting Daoist Lord included. At this level of cultivation, recklessness was impossible unless facing a lower-level cultivator. Mo Hen's smile disappeared instantly, his face darkening as he said, I can give Daoist Lord face, but have you considered the consequences of offending me? Everlasting Daoist Lord frowned, appearing suddenly in front of Guwen. looked at Mo Hen and said coldly, "Daoist friend, you are going too far." Mo Hen stared at Guwen with a cruel smile, blatantly threatening him. Mo Hen harbors hostility towards you, despising you deeply. Would you like to conduct a lifespan detection on him? This constitutes deep hatred? Typical of a demon cultivator, heartless and ruthless. Sigh. Guwen sighed deeply, attracting everyone's attention. He walked past everlasting Daoist Lord towards Mo Hen. "What are you doing?" Baizia hastily grabbed Guwen. Since Baizia had brought Guwen into Mortal World Peak, he felt dishonored and angry over Guwen being bullied. Everlasting Daoist Lord spoke, "Meng Lang, in Mortal World Peak, no one can harm you, and should anyone cause you harm outside, Mortal World Peak will not simply let it go." Guwen smiled at Baizia, then broke free from his grip, turning towards Everlasting Daoist Lord to bow respectfully, before continuing towards Mo Hen. Mo Hen laughed, not expecting this young man to actually walk towards him. "You called me Mo Hen, right? Why must you force me?" Guwen shrugged and spread his hands, his expression one of helplessness. His steps didn't stop, suddenly erupting with a terrifying aura, causing everyone's complexion to change drastically, including Mo Hen's. With each step Guwen took, his aura surged, quickly surpassing the heaven and earth flying immortal realm and continuing to rise. How is this possible? A carefree primordial immortal widened his eyes in disbelief. Others were similarly shocked, and Baizia was dumbfounded. When Guwen reached Mo Hen, his aura had reached the 9th layer of the carefree primordial immortal realm, with the strongest present only at the 6th layer, and Mo Hen himself only at the 4th layer. Guwen lifted his chin, looking down at Mo Hen, asking, "How did you address me just now?" Mo Hen's face looked extremely unpleasant as Guwen's aura completely overwhelmed him. The banquet fell into silence. You could hear a pin drop. The most alarming incident then occurred. Guwen actually reached out and patted Mo Hen's wrinkled face. Though the gesture was gentle, to everyone watching, this was the making of a deadly feud. Chapter 311. A million years is far from enough. After Guwen slapped him, Mo Hen's face showed disbelief. He had not expected Guwen to be so audacious. Despite the gap in their cultivation levels, they both existed as carefree primordial immortals. Mo Hen clenched his teeth and asked, "Who exactly are you, and from which sect do you come?" Everyone else stared at Guwen, waiting for his response. A heaven and earth flying immortal who had just joined Mortal World Peak was a carefree primordial immortal? Everyone felt it was absurd and even suspected Guwen had ulterior motives. At this moment, Baizia could not help but entertain doubts, but upon rethinking, he recalled that it was he who had persuaded the individual to join Mortal World Peak, and it did not seem like a setup at that time. Guwen fixed his gaze on Mo Hen and said, "Does that really matter? If I were merely an ordinary peak master of Mortal World Peak, how would you seek revenge on me?" As soon as Mo Hen exhibited hostility toward him, Guwen had already marked him as a dead man in his heart. Guwen's statement made Daoist Lord Yongyan narrow his eyes. After hearing this, Mo Hen's expression grew uglier, and for a moment, he did not know how to respond. Could he also be aiming for Dingtian Peak? Mo Hen thought angrily in his heart, not considering it a coincidence. How could it be that a randomly chosen person turned out to be a great cultivator concealing his power? Now, he found himself in a dilemma. Bowing his head in submission would not erase the karma, but refusing to do so would only worsen his situation. Suddenly, Mo Hen revealed a smile and said with a clasped fist, "If that's the case, I am even more convinced to join Mortal World Peak. As for Dingtian Peak, I no longer want it. Qingtian Peak is also fine." Upon hearing these words, most of the people present heaved a sigh of relief. Daoist Lord Yongyan spoke, "Forget it, Daoist friend, please go to another sect." Everyone was taken aback by his rapid change in attitude, and Mo Hen's face turned even uglier. Guwen turned around to look at Daoist Lord Yongyan, saw him slightly nodding, and he couldn't help but smile. "Very sensible. Mo Hen let out a cold snort and left with a flick of his sleeves. Everyone urged him to stop, fearing he would stay and escalate the conflict. Guwen raised his right hand, causing everyone to look at him, not understanding what he intended to do. 3 breaths later, Guwen suddenly clenched his hand, then quickly put whatever it was into his sleeve, the movement so swift that no one saw what he had in his hand. You have successfully seized 8,709 years of life span from Mo Hen, carefree primordial immortal realm, 4th layer. Looking at the prompt before him, Guwen remained indifferent, feeling no sense of accomplishment. The surrounding carefree primordial immortals suddenly changed their demeanor. They looked at Guwen with fear, realizing that Mo Hen's aura had suddenly vanished. The heaven and earth flying immortals were curious about what Guwen had just grabbed. Guwen moved next to Bai Zia, and Daoist Lord Yongyan looked deeply at Guwen and then signaled for the cloud banquet to continue. Bai Zia looked at Guwen, wanting to say something but hesitated. Guwen smiled and said, "By Daoist friend, shall things remain as they were before?" Bai Zia subconsciously nodded, his demeanor becoming reserved. How could things be the same? Damn, that was frightening. Bai Zia felt somewhat apprehensive in his heart, wondering if he would have been killed had he acted arrogantly in the beginning. He couldn't voice this question, but the answer was quite clear. At the subsequent banquet, Guwen became the focus, with everyone enthusiastically interacting with him, a stark contrast to the earlier scene, even the carefree primordial immortals addressing him as a senior. At Debating Peak, a yard filled with tables where Lu Lingjun, the Holy Mother of the Western Spirit, and Su Shi sat together, Xinxia was at another table, engaging in a discussion on the principles of Buddhism. The Holy Mother of the Western Spirit looked at Su Shi, curiously asking, "Miss Su, I wonder if we might have the honor of visiting your master? I would like to thank him in person for taking care of Spirit Lord Lu." Lu Lingjun also looked toward Su Shi. In the past few days, Su Shi had shown her around, enriching her understanding of many immortal cultivation concepts. Whenever she wanted something, Su Shi had purchased it before she even asked, and despite some reservations about the motives of the Dingtian Peak Master, she still held a good impression of Su Shi. Su Shi shook her head and said, "My master hasn't mentioned wanting to meet you, nor has he said he is keeping Ms. Lu. After the Peak Conference, you may return without any burden." This statement caused the Holy Mother of the Western Spirit and Lu Lingjun to exchange puzzled glances. Just then, a cultivator landed in the yard. The elder from the Great Cold Demon sect offended the Dingtian Peak Master and perished just after leaving Mortal World Peak. The person spoke excitedly, capturing everyone's attention. Upon hearing it concerned the Dingtian Peak Master, the trio showed curious expressions. The person began to recount the events at the Cloud Banquet, a scenario that was spreading quickly among all peaks of the Mortal World Peak. Mo Hen had once been an elder of the Great Cold Demon sect, which was nearly dissolved, so Mortal World Peak had no hesitation in making his demise known to demonstrate its strength. From Mo Hen forcing the Dingtian Peak Master to relinquish his position to the Dingtian Peak Master showing stronger cultivation than Mo Hen and publicly slapping him, forcing Mo Hen to leave disgracefully, the whole process fired up everyone who heard it. Mo Hen had just flown out of Mortal World Peak when he fell, making the Dingtian Peak Master seem even more formidable in the eyes of the listeners. The news spread within Dingtian Peak, motivating all disciples and clearing the gloom of their low ranking. After understanding this, Lu Lingjun felt even more uneasy. Such a strong-willed Dingtian Peak Master. To have such a person assisting her was a mixed blessing. Due to the conflict between the Dingtian Peak Master and Mo Hen, this Wanli Peak Conference became much more discussive. As Mo Hen's identity and deeds were unearthed, all guests could feel the strength of Mortal World Peak. After the Cloud Banquet ended, Guwen returned to the Supreme Sect. He had also heard the noise from Mortal World Peak. How could news spread so fast? In reality, it was Mortal World Peak deliberately promoting it, thankfully without mentioning Meng Lang's name, showing him respect. Guwen returned to the Third Medicine Valley and happened to meet an Exin, and they chatted for a bit. Master's disciple discussed ordinary matters in the valley, and Guan found talking about life's minor details more interesting than discussing major worldly affairs. Those carefree primordial immortals always talked of grand principles and the world's populace, floating aloft. In the divine exotic realm under the blood-red firmament, Zhang Buku stood by the seashore practicing his divine skills. Behind him, the divine exotic realm master sat before the divine exotic life tablet, looking up at the heavens, lost in thought with a vacant gaze. Zhang Buku finished his maneuver and turned to face his master, asking, "Master, the great calamity has ended, and you have reached agreements with various sects across the sea. Why do you still look so troubled?" Thinking about how sword and circumverted the great cold demon sect stirred his blood. Since he began walking the path of immortal cultivation, he had often heard of the deeds of Sword Venerable Fudao. He never imagined that wherever he went, Sword Venerable Fudao would still be revered by all as a supreme great power. Divine Exotic Realm Master slowly retracted his gaze and said, "Just like Master, the great cold demon sect is but a pawn. This matter cannot end so quickly. The commotion is too large, and the Holy Court will surely investigate. When the storm settles, more trouble will come." Zhang Buku disagreed and said, "If there were an existence behind the great cold demon sect capable of contending with Sword Venerable Fudao, wouldn't they have acted long ago? Perhaps they are investigating Sword Venerable Fudao's identity and cultivation level. Master, don't worry. Wouldn't it be better for you to focus on cultivating and strive to break free from destiny on your own?" Zhang Buku advised. Since his father's death, he had faced continuous tribulations and developed a firm heart. He knew worrying about the future was futile, and seizing the moment to cultivate diligently was key. The divine exotic realm master shook his head, smiling, "Master is not like you. I cannot strengthen through cultivation. The more divine exotic resentful ghosts there are, the stronger master becomes." Zhang Buku frowned upon hearing this and asked, "Now that the world is at peace, won't you be unable to expand the number of divine exotic resentful ghosts?" The divine exotic realm master nodded, then looked up again and said, "It just means I can't grow stronger in this realm. My disciple, would you like to venture to other great heaven and earths?" "Where?" "A very dark realm." The words of the divine exotic realm master puzzled Zhang Buku. What did very dark mean? Was there a place darker than the divine exotic realm? Time flew by, and 7 years passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, Lu Lingjun returned. She saw Guan playing Go with someone and couldn't help but shake her head and laugh. Was Go really that engaging? Her gaze fell on Xianxia. Why had this prominent figure from the Bitter Sea Buddha sect stayed here all this time? She couldn't figure out what charm the Third Medicine Valley held to attract such a great cultivator. She communicated with Guan telepathically. Upon hearing her, he immediately asked Yang Jian, who was standing beside him, to help with the game. Seeing Yang Jian prepare to play, Lu Xianyi from the Holy Court approached. Over the years, he always tried to flatter Yang Jian, a demeanor that led Guan to speculate, but Guan had kept his thoughts to himself, pretending not to know. Guan squeezed through the crowd to greet Lu Lingjun. "Let's talk in your room," Lu Lingjun nodded. Guan had no objections, and the two made small talk as they walked toward the building. Once inside, Lu Lingjun casually sat down, scanning the surroundings. When her eyes landed on certain books on the shelf, she couldn't help but grimace. Some things never change. Guan brewed tea for her as she began recounting her experiences over the years. "I attended the Wanli Peak meeting at Mortal World Peak. It was an eye-opener. Are you aware of Mortal World Peak?" Lu Lingjun asked. Guan nodded and replied, "I've heard of it. Xianxia was there too, but I don't understand much about it. Those great cultivators said I'm not qualified to know." Lu Lingjun smiled and said, "Indeed, you're not qualified. But I was fortunate to attend, and I can tell you about it. Want to hear?" Guan, carrying the hot tea, placed the cup in front of her and said, "Of course, I want to hear. Go on. Let's see if you will try to impress me." Lu Lingjun began from where she first learned about the Wanli Peak meeting, and Guan sat down to listen attentively. She didn't hide the Dingtian Peak Master's protectiveness toward her, even her language seemed to steer, seemingly eager to see Gu An's reaction. Gu An kept a normal expression, silently criticizing in his mind. Are all women like this? Previously, Jiang Qiong also used sword Venerable Fu Dao to pressure him. After some time, Lu Lingjun remarked reflectively, the strength of the Dingtian Peak Master is unimaginable. The elder from the great cold demon sect was killed just like that. I wonder when I could reach such a realm. Gu An joked, practice cultivation for 180,000 years. Lu Lingjun glared at him and retorted, easy for you to say? 1,000,000 years might not be enough. You have no idea about the vastness of the immortal path realm. Chapter 312. The shock of Hu Shaojin appreciation flickered in Gu An's eyes. He hadn't expected Lu Lingjun to have such a keen self-awareness. Lu Lingjun, seeing Gu An's expression, felt rather helpless. Was this guy always so calm? She glared at Gu An and said unenthusiastically, don't you long for it after hearing all that? Gu An replied, of course I yearn for it, but over the years I've heard too many tales of immortals. At best, I take them as entertainment. Could a great man like myself even dream of such things? Lu Lingjun felt his words were somewhat odd, but she was too lazy to argue and continued to talk about her observations from Mortal World Peak. Although Gu An had been there at the time, hearing it from Lu Lingjun's perspective offered a different view of the scene. The two chatted for over an ancient hour, and Lu Lingjun expressed her desire to stay temporarily in the Third Medicine Valley, to which Gu An agreed. Gu An stretched in a languid manner as he looked out the window. Tomorrow he could go to Dingtian Peak to pick medicinal herbs. He had ordered Zhu Xinglan to establish a medicine garden, and the first batch of medicinal herbs was already ripe. Regarding the medicine garden on Dingtian Peak, Gu An had no intention of prohibiting other disciples from picking the herbs so as not to arouse suspicion. After all, Mortal World Peak was now a first-class sect with close ties to the Holy Court, and he had to be careful. And after all, Dingtian Peak was vast. Even with disciples helping, he could collect many herbs himself. Thinking of this, a look of anticipation appeared in Gu An's eyes. The following afternoon, on Dingtian Peak, Gu An walked up the mountain path to the summit, followed by Zhu Xinglan, who displayed great respect as the peak's foremost disciple. He now knew that Gu An was a great power who surpassed the carefree primordial immortal. Such a major figure was critical to cling to, and so he was eager to assist in any way possible. I need a wandering immortal disciple to take charge of an island for me, Gu An said casually. Ask around for me. I won't treat him unfairly. Today had brought him over 300,000 years of lifespan, a decent haul. Zhu Xinglan immediately responded, Master, if you wish to leave today, I will arrange it now. Go ahead. With Gu An's consent, Zhu Xinglan vanished on the spot. Gu An walked to the courtyard and sat on a bench, looking up. Ever since his last breakthrough, cosmic wars had erupted from time to time outside, with increasing numbers of heaven and earth flying immortals coming and going. Gu An also caught sight of the visage of a heavenly demon. The heavenly demons appeared no different from living beings, and included many of the human race. The most distinct feature of the heavenly demons was their demonic chi, which was different from that of the demon cultivators and demons within the great heavenly spirit land. It was more sinister and instinctively repelling. At the periphery of the silent destruction domain, two heaven and earth flying immortals were engaged in combat, fighting over a treasure. Carefree primordial immortals were observing in the shadows. Half an incense stick of time later, Zhu Xinglan returned, bringing someone with him. Sun Hanfeng, Wandering Immortal Realm, 4th Layer 89034/14000/280000. Gu An sized up Sun Hanfeng, who wore a black robe with a slightly sinister face, unkempt hair, and an aura that gave off an impression of great scheming. Feeling Gu An's gaze, Sun Hanfeng lowered his head, not daring to make eye contact. He was nervous because had heard how powerful and domineering this new master was, but he didn't want to miss such an opportunity. Disciple Sun Hanfeng, greets Master. Sun Hanfeng said respectfully with a bow. Zhu Xinglan followed with an introduction of his background. Sun Hanfeng had been born on Mortal World Peak and had a very good relationship with Zhu Xinglan. Let's be off then. Guwen stood up and, with a sweep of his sleeve, whisked Sun Hanfeng away. Zhu Xinglan was momentarily stunned, admiring how impressive the master's divine skills were. Many privately discussed just how powerful the master of Dingtian Peak really was. Zhu Xinglan received an important piece of information. Sect leader Yongyan Daojun believed that the master of Dingtian Peak possessed a higher cultivation level than he did. Such an assessment left him with boundless imagination. Elsewhere, Guwen arrived at Immortal Seeking Island with Sun Hanfeng in tow. As they alighted, Sun Hanfeng stumbled, nearly falling, but Guwen caught his arm in time. "Are you all right?" Guwen asked. Sun Hanfeng, his face flushed with embarrassment, quickly replied, "I'm fine, master. Sorry for the laugh." Guwen nodded and began walking towards the buildings ahead, with Sun Hanfeng hastily following. Guwen started to brief him on Immortal Seeking Island. After understanding the strength of the island, Sun Hanfeng breathed a sigh of relief. A place where a wandering immortal alone could be a deterrent? What pressure could there possibly be? You and the island both share the Sun surname. That's quite a coincidence, Guwen joked, with Sun Hanfeng offering only an embarrassed smile and not the least bit of dissatisfaction. Soon, Hu Shaojian and several elders of the Sea Protection Mansion were introduced, and Guwen had Sun Hanfeng introduce himself. From Mortal World Peak, I am Sun Hanfeng. I look forward to working with all of you and hope for your fullest support, Sun Hanfeng said, and then exhibited the aura of a wandering immortal, which caused everyone in the hall to breathe rapidly. Having spent years doubting whether Gu An's claims were true, they were all shocked to finally witness a wandering immortal. Hu Shaojian was especially excited, looking at Guwen with eyes full of admiration. That's settled then. From now on, Sun Hanfeng is in charge of Immortal Seeking Island. You all talk. With those words, Guwen left. Everyone turned their attention to Sun Hanfeng, all quite nervous since he didn't seem easy to approach. After Guwen left, Sun Hanfeng sat down with an assertive posture, no longer as restrained as before. "May I ask, Elder, does the island master also hail from Mortal World Peak?" One of the loose immortals asked cautiously. The reputation of Mortal World Peak was significant, and even if they were unfamiliar with it, they had heard of it. "Naturally," Sun Hanfeng said. Everyone smiled, now believing Sun Hanfeng had a favorable relationship with the island master, or at least that he was not an outsider. "The island master is my master. You can rest assured. What's most important is that we all work together to run Immortal Seeking Island well. We cannot disappoint him. Moreover, I can tell you, his cultivation level is exceedingly high, stronger than anything you have heard of. Serving him is the greatest fortune of your lives." Sun Hanfeng's words widened everyone's eyes. Hu Shaojian was bewildered. The elder was of such a grand origin? Was he not a loose immortal? Wait, loose immortal was what he had claimed himself. Hu Shaojian felt overwhelmed by immense joy, his mind buzzing, failing to pay attention to the ensuing discussions from the elders. Sun Hanfeng also noticed his distraction but did not mind, as Guwen had instructed to take good care of the lad. Seasons changed and another year passed. After the new spring, Guwen visited the branch of the Supreme Sect. It was his first time at the branch, which he reached through the teleportation array in the main city of Sect. The Supreme Sect grew stronger every year, and its ties with the branch became tighter. Guwen observed the branch's city, feeling the spiritual energy there, which was almost on par with the main city of Sect. No wonder so many disciples wished to come here. Not only was the spiritual energy abundant here, but disciples could also go out to train at any time, hunting demons and searching for heavenly and earthly treasures. The Taitsong dynasty had yet to claim the whole continent, and the same was true for the immortal cultivation sects, as they had not yet traversed every mountain and river on the continent. Guwen didn't rush to find Yilan and began to wander around. As he wandered, he came across an acquaintance, a friend he had made in the Outer Gate city, with whom he exchanged pleasantries for quite some time. Moving on to the next street, he encountered a disciple from the Third Medicine Valley who had achieved foundation establishment. This was the sediment of a 227-year life. Guwen enjoyed chatting with old friends, feeling no distance had grown between them. In the next ancient hour, he encountered two more old acquaintances, indicating that the branch had become the preferred destination for many average disciples, all in search of opportunities in the demon land. Guwen was briefly contemplative but did not interfere with others' lives, unless he cared deeply for them. Like his junior sister, Yilan. By the time Guwen arrived at Yilan's residence, she appeared out of nowhere with a joyful cry, "Big brother, what brings you here?" As she spoke, she rushed over to hug Guwen. "In public, you must behave yourself." Guwen quickly raised his hand and protested. Yilan reluctantly stopped, then pulled him toward the residence, all the while giving him a rundown of the current state of the branch. Inside the residence were numerous female disciples looking after the estate, and as they saw Yilan with Guwen, curious eyes followed. After they walked away, Guwen could hear the maids start to gossip about them. Eventually, Yilan led Guwen into her room, then closed the door. As the two sat down to chat, Yilan finished sharing her experiences and began to inquire about how Guwen had spent his years. Guwen recounted his life, and although it was mundane, Yilan's face remained lit with a smile. Who would have thought, they thought back then, that 200 years later, they would be able to sit together once more. Gradually, Yilan's mind wandered as she fell into a strange state. She experienced this because Guwen was guiding her toward enlightenment. Guwen's divine thought covered the room, helping Yilan perceive the heaven and earth rules, a method beyond the imagination of mortal spirits. Even facing Guwen herself, Yilan didn't notice anything amiss. It was as though Yilan had entered a dream state, her eyes distant and unfocused. Guwen stood up, carried her to the bed, and guided her into meditation. Then he retreated to the table, sitting down to watch her practice. And so he watched Yilan meditate, his heart full of expectation. If he could help Yilan extend her maximum lifespan, he would arrange for her to train at Mortal World Peak. If not, sending Yilan with her few centuries of life to Mortal World Peak would only add to her troubles. Once one's horizons expand, it's easy to develop more expectations, leading to anxiety and pressure. Even divine skills from a true immortal cannot grant eternal life. There seems to be a force in the shadows resisting life's expansion. What that could be, Guwen was also curious to know. Time flew swiftly by. Guwen suddenly felt a bit bored and whimsically considered another option. Why not open another round of reincarnation evolution? This time, he would not select the dark great heaven and earth. He was curious to see how long he could survive. Perhaps if he lived for thousands or tens of thousands of years and mastered formidable divine skills, it might increase his chances of surviving the next tribulation crossing. Moreover, the memories passed down from reincarnation evolution could benefit his Daoist heart cultivation. Guwen felt reaching a certain level might require reincarnation cultivation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have unlocked this feature. Let's give it a shot then. Just one shot, no greediness. After all, it would cost 10 million years of lifespan, and even if he wanted to play more, it was not possible. Guwen looked at Yilan, thinking to himself, "Little sister, please." Chapter 313, Battle Court, Emperor of Heavenly Dragon. You spent 10 million years of lifespan to initiate a reincarnation evolution. Beginning to connect with the Tao rules. Searching for a reincarnation destination. You have the following destinations to choose from. Select one. 1. Dahong Realm. 2. Dark Great Heaven and Earth. 3. Divine Origin Great Heaven and Earth. There's a dark great heaven and earth again? Guwen looked at the prompt before his eyes, immediately feeling aggravated. Black Profound Emperor, you wait for me, our blood feud from 2 lifetimes cannot be resolved. Guwen hummed in his heart and then chose Divine Origin Great Heaven and Earth. He always felt that Great Heaven and Earth seemed more advanced, something like a realm, similar to where Lu Lingjun and Blood Prison Great Saint came from, the lower realm. As Guan was thinking, prompts began to appear in front of him. You've chosen to reincarnate into the divine origin Great Heaven and Earth. Due to the strength of the Tao rules in this realm, you temporarily can't initiate the life-stealing ability, nor can you activate phased features. Reincarnation evolution begins. In the first year, you were born into the dragon family of the divine continent, and your parents bestowed upon you the name Longzhan. At the age of 3, you awakened the true bloodline of the dragon family and, with the help of your clan, you tempered the dragon blood true body. At the age of 8, your family arranged for an immortal master for you, and you officially stepped onto the path of immortal cultivation. At the age of 9, your father took you to court to meet the emperor of divine dynasty, who wished to betroth the 7th princess to you. Your father thought to let you decide. Do you accept? The prompt stopped there. Guan had just been wondering how he had turned into a dragon. He preferred being a human. The appearance of divine dynasty signified that dragon was only a surname. Guan hesitated for a moment and decided to accept, wanting to tread carefully in this life. You accepted the arrangement of the emperor of divine dynasty, and you shall marry the 7th princess, Han Jiaoer, when you turn 16. The emperor of divine dynasty was overjoyed, generously rewarding you and making a decree to announce this to the world. At the age of 13, while accompanied by your clan for training outside, you tore apart a 4th-order demon king with your bare hands, shocking your clan. At the age of 16, you and Han Jiaoer got married in a ceremony, officially becoming the prince consort of the divine dynasty. The emperor of divine dynasty conferred upon you the title of Mighty Holy Duke, granting you the divine dynasty's chi fortune. You became famous throughout the world, entering the ranks of the top-tier talents. At the age of 18, you decided to venture into the world to grow stronger. You left with Han Jiaoer's reluctant farewell, and in the same year, she gave birth to your son, named Long Exing. At the age of 20, you reached the edge of the divine continent and saw an evil dragon ravaging the city. You stepped in, subdued it, and unexpectedly discovered you could absorb dragon blood, making your chi blood even stronger. At the age of 21, you encountered an old Daoist who wanted to read your fate. Do you accept? It stopped again, suggesting the old Daoist was no ordinary person. Guan hesitated for a moment and chose to accept. You agreed to let the old Daoist read your fate. He pinched your muscles and bones and began to calculate. He was soon shocked, proclaiming you possess an innate divine emperor fate, destined to dominate all creatures of heaven and earth, becoming the lord of great heaven and earth. Immediately afterward, the old Daoist exploded into a burst of blood, covering you. At 25, you accidentally entered the grotto heaven of an ancient great cultivator and learned the ancient strange skill, divine desolation technique. Guan's lips twitched when he saw the part about the old Daoist's explosive demise. After that, he picked the more cautious options whenever possible. Year after year passed. Guan was on tenterhooks, fearing an early death. When he made it past 200 years, he smiled, finally setting a new record. However, without the life-stealing ability, Longzhan's growth was surely not as fast as Chu Lu, Xiao Shengtian, and without a displayed realm in the prompts. Take it slow. Guan then became even more earnest, determined to strive to survive this life. As time ticked by, Yi Lan was meditating on the bed while Guan sat at the desk, the room engulfed in silence. Birdsong occasionally rang out from outside the window, adding a serene atmosphere of passing years. After an ancient hour, Guan let out a sigh, his expression grave, mired in struggle. At the age of 187,632, you met with the dragon family ancestor, who said he could fully awaken your bloodline, allowing it to fuse with your chi fortune and create an unprecedented physique. Do you accept his help? Guan had achieved the status of war god of the divine continent and was now venturing through the cosmos when he encountered the ancestor. He always felt the ancestor was up to no good. He did not want to die after coming this far. If the ancestor was benevolent, he wouldn't make things difficult for a descendant who refused him. If malevolent, not trusting him might lead to disaster, but trusting him could lead to plummeting into the abyss. Do not accept. You refused the help of the dragon family ancestor. The ancestor was enraged and attacked you, intending to suppress you. After a great battle, you escaped with severe injuries. At the age of 187,633, you met with Fairy Ziyuan, who fortunately saved you. Your injuries were healed thanks to her. Next came adventure. Fairy Ziyuan began to follow him on adventures, making him less lonely. As for his wife, Han Jiaoer, he had gone to bid her farewell when he was 100,000 years old. They had been parted by yin and yang. It was because of this that he left his descendants behind and ventured alone into the cosmos. Guwen became more relaxed in his subsequent choices, as Long Zhan grew stronger and always managed to escape from death. Half an ancient hour later, at the age of 350,896, you unified a small universe, established the battle court, and married Fairy Ziyuan. You self-proclaimed as the Emperor of Heavenly Dragon and crowned Fairy Ziyuan as the Heavenly Empress. Quite impressive. Guwen suddenly felt a sense of achievement, as if unlocking an epic achievement in a game. He could persevere further. Guwen rubbed his hands together and continued to read on. One 10,000-year span followed another. After tens of thousands of years, at the age of 360,000, you broke through your own shackles, achieving the Dao Void mysterious immortal realm, shocking the cosmos. You regained your life grid. Do you activate the life-stealing ability? Here it comes. It's here. Guwen chose to seize without hesitation. You activated the life-stealing ability. You sacrificed a universe of living beings, resulting in a massive surge in lifespan. Sacrificed? Guwen's face turned pale. How could he be so reckless? At the age of 360,001, just as you transcended the 9 heavens of immortal path and became one with the immortals and gods, a terrifying hand reached across the river of time and snuffed you out. You were executed by the Annihilation God Emperor. Reincarnation ends. What the hell? It ended so abruptly? After he activated the life-stealing ability, Guwen hadn't even made a choice. Guwen immediately vanished from the room and appeared on an island overseas, initiating the lifespan barrier. He then sat down and looked at the last few prompts, grinding his teeth. Good. Very good. Annihilation God Emperor. Another name was added to Guwen's list of grievances. Following that, a huge influx of memories flooded into his mind. It was the entire life of the Emperor of Heavenly Dragon, Long Zhan. It was only after truly receiving the memories that Guwen realized how extraordinary Long Zhan's talent was, being unique from birth, inspiring great expectations from his family. The love between him and Han Jiaoer also left Guwen deeply moved. Once Long Zhan ventured into the cosmos, his life became even more extraordinary, his story deeply touching. Within the memories, Guwen also saw Fairy Ziyuan, incomparably beautiful and with a grace none in the world could match. Chapter 314. Heavenly Dragon and the Ji family. As Guwen continued to assimilate Long Zhan's memories, his hostility towards the Annihilation God Emperor also began to weaken. This Long Zhan is too arrogant. Before his wife Han Jiaoer's death, he still exercised some restraint in his actions, but since he went to outer heaven he completely unleashed himself and acted recklessly. The battle court he established was also tyrannical, rewarding those who followed him and annihilating those who opposed. The peace of heaven and earth sacrificed by Long Zhan was completely innocent and involved, and the creatures of that realm didn't even have time to react before they died. The whole world turned to dust in an instant. Before, Guwen felt that Xiao Xingtian was already arrogant enough, but compared to Long Zhan, he was nothing. If Guwen had been in the great heavenly spirit land and also possessed the ability to slay Long Zhan, he would definitely have made a move. After Guwen finished integrating the memories, it was as if he had lived through Long Zhan's life himself, becoming the Emperor of Heavenly Dragon, yet when he looked back, he was filled with regret and remorse. Before Long Zhan transcended the 9 heavens of immortal path, Fairy Ziyuan had advised him not to pursue enlightenment at the expense of harming other beings. Long Zhan didn't listen, and the two even broke ties over this. After the inheritance of memories ended, Guan was still immersed in them. He was Guan but also Longzhan. This feeling left Guan with an indescribable sense. Perhaps this is what it felt like to remember a past life in one's current life. Clearly the same person, but with different personalities. After inheriting the memories of Longzhan's life, Guan also gained a lot, including insights into the Daoist heart and the ability to inherit Longzhan's most powerful divine skills. Heavenly Dragon Reincarnation Dharma Aspect. This divine skill could condense the ultimate Dharma aspect of one's Daoist sorcery, and could even condense the Dharma aspect of a past life to fight alongside oneself. After creating this divine skill, Longzhan had intended to cultivate through reincarnation evolution to create Dharma aspects for tens of thousands of generations, but an accident unlocked the life-stealing ability, and he no longer researched this divine skill, instead continually using lifespan evolution to enhance his divine skill. Guan slowly opened his eyes and then disappeared inside the island retreat, returning to Yi Lan's estate. At this moment, Yi Lan was still in a state of path enlightenment. Guan sat down and continued to reflect on Longzhan's life. The Longzhan who had transcended the 9 heavens of immortal path was truly powerful. The feeling of controlling life and casually manipulating rules fascinated Guan even now. At the same time, he was also filled with dread at the power of the Annihilation God Emperor. He had truly been crushed to death by the Annihilation God Emperor with a single hand. He hadn't even seen the true form of the Annihilation God Emperor. It was a means that transcended time and space and was superior to the cosmic rules. After understanding Longzhan's life, Guan no longer harbored intense hostility towards the Annihilation God Emperor. Unlike Chu Lu and Xiao Xingtian, Longzhan had brought death upon himself. Guan felt somewhat confused. If reincarnation evolution could be realized, he might also create a peerless evil being. Fundamentally, he did not want to, but he couldn't control the personality in the cycle of reincarnation. Yet reincarnation evolution had many benefits, allowing him to remember countless spells and divine skills, adding to his combat experience, and even enhancing his understanding of reincarnation, making it very difficult for him to give up. After much thought, Guan felt he was trapping himself in his own web of thoughts. Why overthink so much? The path to becoming stronger couldn't possibly be achieved without harming the innocent. Many moral judgments are based on perspective, just like in war. Are not the civilians of the enemy's country innocent? At most, the next time he encounters a situation like Longzhan's, he could choose not to activate the life-stealing ability and rely on his own efforts to cultivate. In fact, even without the life-stealing ability, Longzhan's talent was very strong. Guan began to review the cultivation technique of the Heavenly Dragon Reincarnation Dharma aspect. He felt this Dharma aspect seemed familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. He soon remembered. The Ji family's Heavenly Dragon demon-suppressing form had some similarities. He planned to ask Ji Xiaoyu about it later. Ji Xiaoyu had already inherited divine skills when she returned to the Ji family and might be able to perform the Heavenly Dragon demon-suppressing form. The sun set and the moon rose. A night passed. Yi Lan gradually woke up and felt as if she had had a dream, one she couldn't remember clearly after waking up. When she opened her eyes, she felt the entire world had changed. Her gaze fell on the table and she saw Guan reading a book. Guan turned his head to look at her and smiled, asking, "Awake?" Yi Lan, Divinity Transformation Realm Level 5222/600/800. Her lifespan limit had increased by 200 years. Guan let out a sigh of relief, his face showing a smile. As long as there were results. But the effect was somewhat weak. He was, after all, a divine thought true immortal. Guan carefully examined Yi Lan and noticed a subtle breath dissipating from her body, like the heaven and earth rules, but even more difficult to detect. "How did I fall asleep?" Yi Lan asked, puzzled. Guan rolled his eyes and said, "You're asking me? It's not like I drugged you, is it?" Ji Xiaoyu dismissed the Heavenly Dragon demon-suppressing form, then approached Guan and asked, How was it? Although she wasn't sure why Guwen wanted to see the heavenly dragon demon-suppressing form, it was renowned throughout the world, and showing it to outsiders did not violate clan rules. Truly formidable, it fills me with awe. The person who created this divine skill must truly be a godly being. Does the Ji family have a record of who created it? Guwen exclaimed. Ji Xiaoyu thought for a moment and said, this divine skill has an ancient origin, created by an ancestor. Who exactly created it I am unsure, but if you care, I can look into it when I return. Guwen nodded. I'm indeed curious. I want to write a book, inspired by the Ji family's history. Upon hearing this, Ji Xiaoyu smiled and said, the vice sect leader is looking forward to you writing about the Ji family. The two continued their conversation, with Ji Xiaoyu planning to introduce other divine skills, but Guwen showed no interest, so she gave up. Both of them headed towards Medicine Valley. The heavenly dragon demon-suppressing form was created by the Reincarnation Path Emperor, or perhaps, I have seen her perform it. A voice came from the forest ahead, and stealing the 5 elements appeared. Ji Xiaoyu frowned, her expression full of displeasure. Guwen had already noticed stealing the 5 elements eavesdropping, and he too was speculating whether it was related to the Reincarnation Path Emperor, so he didn't mind stealing the 5 elements' presence. Currently, only the Reincarnation Path Emperor in the Ji family could travel to outer heaven. Stealing the 5 elements, seeing the look in Ji Xiaoyu's eyes, laughed and said, she once said that at the other end of the universe, there exists a more vast expanse of heaven and earth that I can't even fathom. After hearing this, Guwen suddenly suspected that the dragon race or the battle court might still exist. Of course, it was just a guess. Although he integrated Longzhan's memories and became Longzhan, he had no intention of seeking out the dragon race or the battle court. Staying honestly in the great heavenly spirit land was the righteous path. Even the strong could be crushed by others. Why do you always eavesdrop on our conversation? Ji Xiaoyu said discontentedly, the Dao patterns on her forehead emitting strange radiance once again. Stealing the 5 elements raised his hand, I mean no harm. Am I not helping you clear up your doubts? If you could transform into the Reincarnation Path Emperor, I would only be pleased. With that he vanished on the spot. Guwen consoled, don't worry about him, watch how I'll crush him on the chessboard in the future. Ji Xiaoyu retracted her Dao patterns and nodded slightly. For Guwen, this was just a minor interlude, understanding was enough. He didn't need to investigate thoroughly. Longzhan's karma was too significant, he didn't want to get involved. But this incident stirred his imagination. If reincarnation evolution projected into the past, how strong would the Black Profound Emperor be now? What about that Annihilation God Emperor and Great Heavenly Spirit Land? Would they also be in his field of view? Guwen felt he needed to be even more cautious in the future and must not let others know he could steal lifespan. A flock of birds flew out from the forest, heading toward the distance, their figures obscured by the sunlight. 5 years quickly passed. This year, news spread throughout the world, causing a sensation. The establishment of the Broken Sea Domain. Created by the Holy Court, covering the region that the Great Cold Demon sect previously sought to slaughter in the mortal world, with the sea-breaking rift at the center. The news spread rapidly, penetrating the continent, with the Emperor Li Xiandao following with an edict to the world, declaring the continent be renamed Taizong Continent. The Nine-Fingered Divine Lord didn't come today, and Xianxia was immersed in studying the journey to the west under a tree, much like Sui Jian in his absorption. Guwen looked at the imposing Enhao and was very pleased. The current Enhao had already reached the 8th layer of the unification realm, still cultivating at an impressive speed. Yang Jian was a major realm behind him, not yet comparable, but once they entered the Immortal Path realm, the gap would be trivial. When master and disciple arrived outside in Xin's courtyard, she turned around, smiling, and then pulled Enhao out of the house. Enhao stood tall, head crowned with an imposing golden dragon crown, dressed in a waist-bound white robe with sleeves long like flowing clouds. His handsome face bore sharp, proud brows, and just standing there, he possessed a lofty spirit that commanded the world, without losing the transcendent demeanor of a cultivator. Compared to him, Yang Jian seemed ordinary. Usually, Yang Jian stood out among his fellow disciples, but next to Hao, he was easily overlooked. "Sister, over the years, Master has been extremely kind to me. I haven't suffered at all," an Xian said happily. And Hao stood in front of Guan and suddenly didn't know how to address him. "Brother Hao, have you forgotten me?" Guan asked with a smile, his demeanor warm as the spring breeze, instantly easing Hao's awkwardness. "How could I forget? We've been through life and death together. Thank you for taking care of my sister over the years, which has eased many of my worries." And Hao smiled, then took out a brocade box to present to Guan. Guan quickly declined, but under the joint persuasion of an Xian and Hao, he could only reluctantly accept it. The box contained 8th-rank medicinal herbs. The young man was thoughtful, and Hao's gaze inevitably landed on Yang Jian, who had been unabashedly staring at him since earlier. How could he not have noticed? Intuition told him Yang Jian was not simple. He felt like he was facing impermanence Tian. Of course, while Yang Jian was far from as strong, and Hao suspected he might also possess an ancient treasure body. "Who is this?" And Hao asked proactively. "My disciple, Yang Jian," Guan replied with a smile, finding the rivalry between the two disciples interesting. "Yang Jian? True Lord Erlang?" And Hao laughed. Yang Jian, serious, said, "I want to spar with you." He could see now that Hao was definitely not the mysterious senior disciple, which diminished his awe for Hao somewhat. In his mind, only that senior brother could surpass him, as the master said his talent was stronger at the moment. And Hao's smile vanished as he began to size up Yang Jian. And Xian wanted to interject but hesitated, looking at Guan to find him smiling without interruption. And Hao spoke, "You're not strong enough, but I acknowledge your talent and courage. How about we agree to settle it at the Heavenless tournament in the future? What do you think?" Hearing this, Yang Jian felt it was reasonable. A duel like this should be witnessed by the world, so he nodded in agreement. "Don't forget to thank him. He's been cultivating for many more years than you. He could easily pick on you, but instead, he's willing to give you time to grow," Guan said. At those words, Yang Jian immediately bowed to express his gratitude. And Hao looked at Guan in astonishment. That such a talent was so obedient? Intuition told him that not even among the Star Sea congregations could one find such a genius. "You two keep talking, I won't disturb you any longer." Guan dropped these words and left with Yang Jian. And Hao didn't ponder any further and took an Xian back into the house. Not far away, the blood prison great saint watched Hao and inwardly marveled. This youth shouldn't be underestimated. He seemed even stronger than Yang Jian. Guan returned alone to his loft and opened the brocade box, examining the medicinal herbs gifted by Hao. Not long after, Ji Xiaoyu came to find him. "That Hao is rather remarkable. I've seen such a presence in my dreams, always dominating an entire realm," Ji Xiaoyu remarked. "You're not bad yourself," Guan replied with a smile. Among those he had encountered, below the state of nirvana, those with a lifespan reaching 9,999 years were few. Currently only Hao, Yang Jian, Blood Prison Great Saint, and Ji Xiaoyu. Li Ling Tian was short by 1,000 years. Ji Xiaoyu had not only great talent but also a significant background. For now, Guan felt that Hao's foundation fell short of hers. Of course, when it came to cultivation speed, Hao was unrivaled. Ji Xiaoyu sat down and asked, "Why is it that your Medicine Valley always attracts so many peerless geniuses and powerful cultivators?" Guan helplessly replied, "You're asking me? But who am I to ask? Besides, they're not coming for me." Ji Xiaoyu shook her head. "Even if not for you, you've established good karma with each one. You're not simple, like the great fortune of energy movement I've seen in my dreams, not necessarily the strongest in talent, but always breaking through and stirring the winds of change in the world." Guan blinked and asked, "What are you trying to say?" Ji Xiaoyu took a deep breath. "I'm planning to go somewhere, a place with a great opportunity. Come with me." Hearing this, Guan felt a headache. Many had said similar things to him. You go ahead, the supreme sect can't be without me, Guan declined, to Ji Xiaoyu's astonishment at his resolute refusal. Chapter 317 Demon Fetus. You have successfully acquired 9,670 years of lifespan from the Dark Soul Ancestor, Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma Realm, 3rd level. Looking at the prompt before him, Guan remained indifferent. If it were not for the other party charging at him directly, he would not have bothered to kill him. The reason he did not perform the soul search was because the space within the stone pillar still concealed other heavenly demons. Guan casually responded, "It's just a demon soul. Its realm, high or low, doesn't matter." Doesn't matter? Zhu Xinglan opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. Gu and his divine thought locked onto the space inside the stone pillar, where, within that pitch-black space, there existed yet another aura of a heavenly demon that was even more terrifying. His divine thought captured the location of that heavenly demon. It turned out to be a demon egg. The demon egg, formed from demonic qi and about a zhang tall, emitted a faint glow, like the weak starlight in the dark universe. Gu and his divine thought penetrated the demon egg and saw a demon infant. He saw the demon infant entwined with heavy and complex karma, even making him feel uneasy, his intuition telling him that eradicating the demon infant would bring greater trouble. He withdrew his divine thought and also stopped his actions, restoring the restriction on the stone pillar. He turned and said to Zhu Xinglan, "From now on, no one must enter this place, and you must not disturb this stone pillar. There is a fearsome heavenly demon inside, difficult to handle, and it has yet to awaken." Hearing this, Zhu Xinglan immediately became nervous and muttered, "Heavenly demon." Sure enough, the previous problem has not been completely resolved. Guan couldn't help but ask, did the previous internal upheaval on Dingtian Peak have to do with the heavenly demon? That's right, that terrible evil demon was a heavenly demon. It said that the former peak master was transformed by the heavenly demon. The sect feared that spreading the word would stir up greater turmoil, so they concealed the fact. Zhu Xinglan nodded, his face full of worry. The greater turmoil he referred to was the Holy Court, which has the deepest apprehension for heavenly demons. Guan suddenly thought of Yu Yingying and Xianxia. Could there be other heavenly demon reincarnations in the world? He felt it was very likely. He sensed he had triggered an extraordinary side plot. He did not want to get involved, so he prepared to seal this place, especially since the demon fetus was still in slumber. As such, it's even more crucial not to speak of this, understood? Guan cautioned. Guan was slightly annoyed. When your grandson was here, why didn't you call me senior brother? Xiaochuan grinned. That was to prevent him from clinging to you once he realized your identity. You are a high cultivator of the supreme sect, at least in his eyes. Looking at the signs of aging on Xiaochuan's face, Guan felt a sense of nostalgia. Why stop the children from seeking the immortal path? I'm not stopping them, they just want to use my connections to get in. If they truly possess the talent, they will rise even without my intervention. Xiaochuan shook his head. His words seemed to make sense to Guan. Decades had passed, and Xiaochuan had become more mature, with the sediment of years evident on him, no longer the silent youth who once followed Guan. Guan took this chance to enlighten Xiaochuan, immersing his thoughts in the heaven and earth rules, allowing him to momentarily forget about outside matters. Autumn winds swept up the fallen leaves in the courtyard, as if fate refused to let them settle on the ground. Above the sea, dressed in black, Leah stood on a black eagle's back, his gaze fixed on the distance. Above the sea-breaking rift hung a majestic and mighty floating island, on which stood a city emanating an awe-inspiring aura that commanded respect from all living beings. Broken Sea Domain Master City, Leah muttered to himself, frowning. A divine exotic immortal spirit appeared on his shoulder and said softly, "There are terrifying things hidden there that will eat me, don't go near." Hearing this, Li Ya's frown deepened as it was the first time he heard the divine exotic immortal spirit say such a thing. He took a deep breath, then stamped his foot, and the black eagle flapped its wings harder, speeding up like an arrow, quickly diving into the sea-breaking rift. Once inside the dark rift, Li Ya breathed a sigh of relief, his gaze looking down with determination. "Zhang Buku, wait for me, I haven't given up on you." Li Ya's hands tightened into fists within his sleeves, and he drew his heavy sword, ready for battle. Meanwhile, far away in Mystic Valley, Guan was picking medicinal herbs. He couldn't help but stand up and look into the distance. It had been 10 years since he had lectured Xiaochuan. Over those years, he hadn't seen Xiaochuan again and had immersed himself back into his life. In those 10 years, he had extended his lifespan by more than 18 million years, and so had been happy every year. It was not until today that the divine exotic immortal spirit told him it sensed a dangerous presence. The divine exotic immortal spirit claimed to feel the presence of a natural enemy within the Broken Sea Domain Master City, an extremely sinister presence. Guan probed with divine thought and discovered a heavenly demon within the Broken Sea Domain Master City. Another heavenly demon. This heavenly demon also possessed the cultivation level of a divine immortal of wondrous dharma. Unlike the dark soul ancestor before, this one was a living spirit. There he was, hidden in a dark palace, separated by many restrictions. No matter how Guan saw it, he didn't look like a prisoner. Could it be that the holy king behind the great cold demon sect had a connection with the heavenly demon? Guan didn't alarm them. Exterminating demons was easy, but severing causality was difficult. It was better for both sides to wait, even though he did not know what the other side was waiting for, but he knew he was growing stronger every year. Nirvana, loose immortal, wandering immortal, heaven and earth flying immortal, carefree primordial immortal, divine immortal of wondrous dharma, Tao void mysterious immortal, and divine thought true immortal. In this world where even carefree primordial immortals were rare, Guan, in the realm of divine thought true immortal, had the confidence to face all trials. Guan watched for a while longer, then withdrew his divine thought. He wasn't panicked by the calculations of that holy king. He felt that the holy king might be a pawn of the heavenly demon. Inviting the hostility of the heavenly demon for personal grievances, though not afraid, was unnecessary. Guan continued picking medicinal herbs, humming a little tune. Once he finished picking the medicinal herbs, he left Mystic Valley. He arrived on the eaves of a building at the Chuan residence, his gaze on Xiaochuan, who was cultivating in the courtyard. After that enlightenment, Xiaochuan devoted more time to cultivation, a subject he had mentioned to no one. Guan saw that Xiaochuan's ultimate lifespan had increased to 415 years. Not too bad. He then peeked into Xiaochuan's causality. On a typical day, Guan wouldn't only be playing around, he cultivated too. What he studied the most was the causality of life. He could now probe the entire lives of mortals. Even if a 3-year-old child stood before him, he could see the end of their life in an instant. As expected, Xiaochuan's life had changed. Previously, Guan saw Xiaochuan passing away with a peaceful and regret-free departure. This time he saw Xiaochuan surviving past his original lifespan's end, with the Chuan house also producing a generation with stronger talent for cultivation. But as he watched, Guan's brows furrowed. Xiaochuan died at age 413, not living out his full ultimate lifespan because his descendants offended a powerful cultivation family. Worn out from too much exertion, he died of depression in the end. Guan suddenly felt that his enlightenment of Xiaochuan might not have been such a good thing. But on second thought, he'd simply take action when the time came. He was the biggest variable in Xiaochuan's life causality. With that in mind, Guan looked towards the other members of the Chuan family, peering into their lives. A mortal's life seems long to them but is short in his eyes. Their decades of experience would just flash by him, causing no burden and not affecting him in the slightest. That was the strength of a divine thought true immortal. Not to say divine thought true immortal, even a Tao void mysterious immortal could reach this degree. It wasn't long before Gu An's gaze landed on a boy called Chuan Qi. Chuan Qi, untrained in Qi cultivation 3/120/1050, such talent was definitely the strongest among Xiao Chuan's descendants. Gu began to probe into Chuan Qi's life. It wasn't Chuan Qi who offended the Cultivation family, but another member of the Chuan house. After Xiao Chuan's death, Chuan Qi left the family and ventured alone into the immortal cultivation world. This youngster actually lived past the years of his ultimate lifespan, meaning he would encounter great fortunes in the future, the specifics of which Guan could not determine from causality. Until Chuan Qi met a girl. After that, the causality broke, and his future became unfathomable. When Guan saw the girl, he could instantly tell she harbored a heavenly demon's soul. Another heavenly demon. Exactly how many heavenly demons had infiltrated the great heavenly spirit land? Guan frowned and continued to scan the others. He stood proudly on the eaves, unseen by those passing through the courtyard below. After 30 minutes, Guan finally returned to the third medicine valley. He stepped down from the transmission array platform, pondering over causality and fate. Guan, come over for a game of Go. A voice called out, and as Guan turned his head, the caller was none other than the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord. In recent years, Lu Xini and stealing the 5 elements had left. There were only 2 great cultivators left in the valley, Xianxia and the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord. Xianxia was not very interested in Go, preferring to study Journey to the West and Investiture of the Gods. Guan didn't understand why Xianxia could keep on reading those 2 books over and over, but he chose to respect his choices. Guan walked towards the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord while simultaneously probing his causality and fate. The higher the opponent's cultivation level, the shorter the lifespan Guan could see. The Nine-Fingered Divine Lord's lifespan and causality were extremely complex, staying consistent for decades, but Guan could no longer see beyond 50 years into the future. Guan settled down before the Go board as he opened the Go box. He asked, "Predecessor, you have lived for a long time. Tell me, should cultivators intervene in the lives of mortals, even with good intentions?" The Nine-Fingered Divine Lord looked at him in surprise upon hearing this question, never expecting him to ask such a thing. "You've asked the right person. I think one shouldn't. Cultivation itself is a path against nature. Intervening in a mortal's life will only bring them calamity. There is a will of heaven inherent within the universe. Once, I faced a trial. That ordeal left me gravely injured, losing a finger, but it also confirmed for me the existence of the will of heaven. There is certainly a force beyond the reach and touch of cultivators that may lack consciousness, but it controls the fate of all beings. The higher my cultivation, the more I feel its vastness." As he spoke, a hint of fear even appeared in the eyes of the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord. Guan curiously asked, "Is it from Holy Court?" Ever since the establishment of the Broken Sea domain, Holy Court had entered the collective consciousness of the beings on the continent, becoming an institution representing the divine forces amidst mortal beings. Chapter 319. Fighting against the heavens. After a fierce and exhilarating battle, the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord looked extremely displeased. He lifted his eyes to look at Guan and asked through gritted teeth, "Where exactly is the problem?" Guan shrugged and said, "I don't know. Why can you always guess my next move? Intuition tells me where you'll play next, and as long as I guess right, you seem to get flustered and keep changing your strategy, eventually exposing your weaknesses." Guan's response infuriated the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord so much that he nearly coughed up blood. Guan's smile faded as he said, "However, this game of chess has indeed made me understand that change can indeed bring disaster. Thank you for your teachings, senior. With that, he stood up, gave a formal bow, and took his leave. The nine-finger divine lord watched Gu An's retreating figure and opened his mouth, but ultimately his gaze fell back on the chessboard. Gu An walked towards his loft with a smile on his face. In fact, there was one more thing he didn't say. Change can indeed lead to disaster, but whether it's for better or worse depends on the player himself. Life is like a game of chess, and Gu An intends to be a player who always wins, even if his opponent is what they call fate. To struggle against destiny is a joy, isn't it? Having come to this realization, Gu An no longer felt burdened. He didn't intend to casually change others' lives, only the lives of those he cared about. Xiao Chuan was indeed open-minded, but his wish to be reborn into a good life in the next life also showed his longing for immortal cultivation, just lacking in innate talent. Gu An also realized that as long as he kept getting stronger, he could keep pushing the limits of those around him. What cannot be achieved now does not mean it cannot be done in the future. Reincarnation might exist, but he only wished to strive for the present. This Ji Xiaoyu was not the same person from his past life, and Gu An was not Long Zhan, Xiaoxing Tian, or Chu Lu. In the divine exotic realm, beneath the blood-red sky and above the sea of clouds, Zhang Buku stood shoulder to shoulder with the master of divine exotic realm, overlooking the battle below. Endless waves of divine exotic resentful ghosts besieged Liya, coming at him like relentless waves, never ceasing. Without the divine exotic city, Liya was embroiled in a difficult fight. The divine exotic resentful ghosts are undying. With his capabilities, at most he can hold on for one ancient hour, said the master of divine exotic realm, expressionless. Zhang Buku turned to him and asked, "Why won't you let me meet him? I can make things clear." "What things clear?" "Say that someone is backing you, forcing me to not restrict you, and even taking you as a disciple?" The master of divine exotic realm glanced at him coldly and asked,